Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 850 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And we're getting very big news today that the Russians are withdrawing from Vovchansk completely, and the front line is collapsing. And it's good to see you all for another stream.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And we have absolutely incredible news today, as information and initial reports are beginning to suggest that Russian forces are withdrawing from the Vovchansk region, and the Battle of Vovchansk has most likely ended in total Ukrainian victory in this major battle. An unbelievable turn of events, and certainly, once again, a major watershed moment in the defense of the Ukrainian homeland from Russian invasion and further Russian offensives. We were also able to get significant news that more attacks have occurred on Rostov-on-Don, resulting in several fires being created. We were also able to hear that damage at the Esk airfield has been wildly severe, leading to the Russian Federation once again losing more logistical support for their air force, which will be very difficult to replace. We have also been able to get, at the exact same time, news from the Middle East, where we've been able to hear the concerning information that a Israeli ground invasion of Southern Lebanon is almost imminent at this point, and most likely will be happening within the next few days, or really within the next 48 to 60 hours. You can still hear me right, though, Matthew?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly fine. It's just a little bit of internet problems, I guess.
Yeah, that's really bizarre, because you and me can hear each other fine. Sorry about that, everyone. But getting back to that, we are able to hear that apparently a Israeli invasion appears to be imminent at this point, and we're also seeing that several major countries like France and others are offering military assistance to the Lebanese government to help them to be able to push the Lebanese further enough south to be able to avoid the conflict with the nation of Israel, or the state of Israel. We have also been able to hear some very large news coming from inside of Ukraine itself, as we have seen the Ukrainian forces have been able to inflict incredibly high casualties onto Russian Federation forces throughout the entirety of the front line, the actual proper front line from the area around Kupiansk and all the way down to Kherson, and it does seem as though the Ukrainian armed forces have once again had a very successful day, and it does look like we have loads of breaking news to cover. And so moving on immediately into our breaking news, we were able to get reports that in the Vovchansk area, the Russians are beginning to withdraw. This is coming on the heels of a very terrible offensive that was conducted by the Russians, which saw them gain absolutely no advances, dedicate a massive amount of troops in the tens of thousands to conducting this offensive, and then it completely fell flat on its face practically immediately. We were able to get video footage of the 3rd Brigade operating in the Kharkiv direction today, which shows us a little bit of the withering battles that the Russian Federation are undergoing even right now as they are beginning to withdraw from the Vovchansk Oblast. Here is one of the clips showing the 3rd Brigade engaging Russian infantry in one of the forests just west of the city of Vovchansk. We can see the machine gunner laying down fire on the Russians as the squad begins to rapidly advance against them and continue their fight.
Там пидорас прямо пошел!
We now see our machine gunner once again propping up his machine gun and laying down suppressive fire on the Russians to keep their heads low and to allow his squad mates to continue to advance down the tree line. We now see the machine gunner reloading.
Да, конечно! Самурайчик живой! Давай прикрой!
See him continuing to lay down suppressive fire.
Самурай, он ушел уже. Он самостоятельный. Пидор там кричал, у него полноги, я увидел, отлетело.
You see him talking to his squad mates.
Братишка, ты колотил?
Смотри, вот на этом блиндаже на 12 должен быть пидор. Живой, не живой, хуй его знает. И поворот справа должен быть пидор, как принято.
We hear the firefight continuing in the tree line as the machine gunner communicates over his radio.
Стоп, стрельба, позиція зачищена, перевіряємо бліндажі. Плюс, доперевіряємо бліндажі і все, як прийняв.
Що там?
We now see the infantry taking a moment in the trench, most likely to regroup as they continue their offensive against the Russians in this tree line. We hear the sound of distant cluster munitions landing on Russian forces further away.
Выстрел, да, РПГ. Идешь, хуяришь? Посадку. Да. Берешь от начала. Ебать, ну так може. И пиздуй туда. Чтоб он, дура, понял, типа, что мы тоже ему пизды дать можем.
We can hear the machine gunner continuing to talk with his squad mates as he now advances forward.
Ну, ты же говоришь, он тебя кошмарит. Иди уеби. Вот так, типа.
As we can hear him continuing to conversate. We can now see that it appears that they are about to start moving down the trench again.
Ну, за 200 он уже отдыхал, мы пришли, свели его, добили.
And it appears from what we could tell, it does seem as though they have been able to liberate this ground from the Russian army, prying it from their cold, sleepy hands.
Плюс принял, виконуємо.
And that's the end of the clip, but still showing one of the fights that did occur by the 3rd Brigade today within the area. At the exact same time, we also got to see that some Ukrainian forces were apparently being suppressed, most likely as Russian forces were attempting to conduct a cover for the Russian forces that were beginning to withdraw from the area. This footage was filmed by the Korn Group, which is a combat unit that is currently in the area around the western Vovchansk region, and we could see that they were under a pretty heavy amount of artillery fire a little bit earlier on in the day. We hear the rounds coming down almost right on top of their positions.
He's brave to be standing right next to that doorway like that.
Yeah, really. I mean, this guy's got some balls.
This is a literal definition of getting pounded on that tiny post.
Ryan and his team were up in their tiny post, and they were getting pounded. But he is, of course, having some very big nerves of steel in this clip, as he gets this footage for us to show us the intensity of the barrage that the Russians were laying down. Meanwhile,
I guess he would have hidden, but then he remembered the Russians can't aim worth a damn, so he's like, well, I'll just stand here and watch, I guess.
Dude, it's like a Midwesterner watching a tornado. They know it's deadly, they know it's dangerous, but they're still going to go out to the front porch and take a good look at it, just to get an idea of what's coming around the corner. But that moves us on into the major statement today that did come out from the Kyiv Independent, which has been a fairly reliable source of war information so far, and the Ukrainian army says some Russian troops are withdrawing from the Vovchansk area. Some of the Russian forces are withdrawing from the area near Vovchansk in the Kharkiv Oblast for replenishment due to a loss of combat capability. This is according to the spokesperson for Ukraine's Hortsia group of forces, Nazar Volshelin, said on the 22nd of June on national television, which was today. The withdrawal of Russian units was also seen near the villages of Lipsy and Tike, according to Voloshin. This information is incredibly important, as the withdrawal of Russian forces from the area is showing that they have sustained such high casualties that a sustained frontline or defensive initiative is no longer possible, and therefore a withdrawal of Russian forces is the only possible move that can be made, and they are now going to start moving these forces across the line, never to return back into the area. These kinds of withdrawals are once again showing us that the battle for Vovchansk is already for the large part a Russian defeat and is in the process of becoming a near Ukrainian victory, as we're talking right now. Russian units are, of course, being decimated due to Ukrainian superior firepower and superior numbers in this area so thoroughly that not only are some units having been completely encircled and surrendered inside of the Vovchansk area near to the chemical plant, but other units have been so far depleted that there is no way to keep them on the front lines, and so it is a much more advantageous idea to take whatever remains of these units and withdraw them across the line. This kind of news is absolutely significant, as the Battle of Vovchansk was what we could call the Russian Gettysburg. It was an attempt to try and create a battle that would put the Ukrainians in such a bad or disadvantageous position that they would be forced into the diplomatic negotiating table, so that way their position doesn't continue to get worse and deteriorate. The Russian attack at Vovchansk was meant to drive deeper into Ukraine and surround the city of Kharkiv, home to 1.2 million Ukrainians, and the second largest city within the nation. If the Russian Federation had been successful in their initial offensive and had been able to break through Ukrainian lines and encircle the city of Kharkiv, the Ukrainian government may have had no other option than to discuss some sort of ceasefire agreement, or maybe even more so, an actual end to the war, an actual peace treaty that would cede a large amount of territory to the Russian Federation to save the citizens of Kharkiv from an extremely long and bloody battle that would not only surround the city, but would also be fought within the suburbs and inner city area of the city of Kharkiv. However, that result never really panned out for the Russian Federation, and the Russian Federation got bogged down in this offensive practically immediately once crossing the border. Ukrainian reserve forces were moved in at exceedingly fast speeds, and not only that, inflicted such high casualties onto the Russian Federation's forces that any further offensive gains were not really possible by the Russian army, and therefore they had to begin to sit in place, and now we've seen that they have begun to dig in about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, which is clearly a defensive measure and showing that they have no expectations, considering the fierce resistance that they are now undergoing from Ukrainian forces, that they would be able to make any further offensive gains reaching the city of Kharkiv, or at least the ring road called the E40. Really, it's called a whole bunch of things on the southwestern side or the northwestern side. It is the M03 and the E105, but in the area that the Russians would initially advance on, it would be the E40. But nevertheless, that idea never came into fruition, and it does appear that the Russian Federation has lost outright the Battle of Vovchansk, and the withdrawals of these forces are certainly showing that the Russian Federation will probably have not have another attempt at any kind of an offensive, because this one showed that Russian offensives, even brand new ones, in inactive areas of the border are largely going to be unfruitful or unsuccessful in achieving any kind of major military initiative or any kind of major war goal. And a lot of people have been wondering if they think the Russians will regroup and attempt a second Kharkiv offensive very soon, considering the failures of the funnily enough, the second Kharkiv offensive that has already happened right now. So while this may be the first one here in recent memory, there was a original Kharkiv offensive that began on day one of the war, and then was lost around the midway to later part of 2022 during the Balaklia counteroffensive. We have then seen that the Russians have now conducted this new offensive within Kharkiv, just around, I believe it was March or April of this year, or late April of this year, and it appears that this has also failed as well. And a lot of people are wondering, will there be a second offensive like this, of this nature, that will attempt to try and capture the city of Kharkiv, or at least give it another go? And it looks like a decent amount of people may be believing that that's true, and Russia will have another go at trying to take the city of Kharkiv in a major offensive. Others are saying that Russia is not going to try that. Some people are saying that they might try this again, but it'll probably be a lot later down the road, and some people are unsure and undecided about this, and aren't really sure whether the Russians would want to try and dedicate this much time and effort to another Kharkiv offensive, but nevertheless realize that there is a pretty decent argument on either end to say that it either wouldn't happen or it would happen. But Matthew, what are people really thinking about this, and what are you thinking? Do you think that even with the massive failures of two Russian offensives that occurred in Kharkiv, they will try even another time to take the city?
So it looks like 39% of the audience said yes, Russia will have another go at it, while 24% said they might, but it'll be much later on down the road, and 28% said no, Russia simply isn't going to try to do that in the near term or the long term for that matter. And on this one, I really have a feeling here that they're not going to try another offensive very soon, because the losses have been massive. And also, like the Enforcer was saying, Vovchansk was one of the first stops to getting to Kharkiv, and they failed in such a bad way there, taking so many losses and having an absolute worst case scenario happen for the Russian forces, that they are completely demoralized, that they cannot make their way to Kharkiv without taking even worse losses than they've already taken. So, in my opinion, it'll probably be again in the future, but probably much later on down the road. Not in the short term, but probably in the long term. Because remember, Kharkiv is one of those cities that Russia's had their eye on for quite some time, and that would be a real trophy if they could try to take it. But I don't think they have the equipment nor the desire to go back into it this quick after a defeat. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I do not believe for a single instant that the Russians are going to be trying this soon. They will probably try it again, considering that they did it a second time already. A third time would not be out of the picture, but that would be way down the road. In fact, it may be so far down the road that the Russians really never get the chance of being able to try and conduct another major Vovchansk offensive, or a Kharkiv offensive, in my opinion. This offensive was one that was meant to show that the Russian Federation still had some kicking and fighting left in it to be able to try and win a major offensive in the war. If I had to compare this to any kind of a battle in previous wars, this would probably be the Battle of the Ardennes, or really what a lot of people would know as the Battle of Bastogne, which is a specific battle within the Ardennes offensive conducted by the Germans in late 1944 to early 1945. But also, the Battle of Gettysburg is another battle that comes to mind, a Confederate last-ditch attempt to try and put the Union into an extremely strategic disadvantageous position that would force them to go to the negotiating table on the Confederacy's terms. Those two kinds of battles are ones that I believe are very similar to this one. We already knew that once this offensive was about to be underway, that the Russian Federation's armed forces were getting into a very precarious position, running out of tanks, armored personnel carriers, artillery, and really any kind of modern or advanced weapon systems. The Russian Federation, when this offensive began, was already starting to show that it was a aging and weakening force that was not going to be doing that much better, especially in the conventional front lines that exist from Kupiansk and down into Kherson. And as the battles continued to progress, the Russians did want to find a way to be able to punch through Ukrainian defenses and secure an unbelievable, major strategic victory that would force the Ukrainians to the negotiating table. And there is only one thing that they could have done that would have been practical, which is to encircle or besiege the city of Kharkiv and the 1.2 million citizens living inside of it. If they had done something like that, they would have been able to force the Ukrainians to the negotiating table. I have absolutely no doubt or apprehension in my head that the Russian aim and the Russian campaign goal in Kharkiv was to encircle, besiege, and possibly completely capture the city of Kharkiv, and in doing so, force the Ukrainians into a position where they would no longer be able to keep fighting the war on their terms. They would then have to try and find an end to the war on Russia's terms. The Russians attempted this offensive, and it failed immediately. There was absolutely no prospect of this offensive succeeding. We already knew that once the Russian forces crossed the border from Plina and also from the area around Platonivka and into Vovchansk. Well, actually, they crossed the border around Novaya Tavlzhanka, where there isn't even an actual road to be used for logistics, which was actually a bat brain idea, the best way I can put that. But beyond that, we knew that the offensive wasn't going to be a failure from the outset. Y'all can actually go back, and I'm sure that some of our LSA historians in the chat will be able to tell y'all the specific day that this happened on. Good Lord, thank you,
Dang.
Alex. Jeez.
Huge shout out to Alex Scott. That's a lot of
Massive
support.
shout. Dang. Oh, well, thank you so much for that, Alex. And we will get to that in a minute. But nevertheless, getting into the battle analysis again, the Russians were poised to try and take this area, but nevertheless, they would never take it. We knew this from day one. Once we heard that the Russians crossed at Plina, y'all can go back, and hopefully the LSA historians will be able to find this for all of y'all and tell y'all what day this was when this offensive began. I sat there and broke down, and Matthew, I think you remember this. It was like 20 minutes. I broke down everything that was going to be wrong with this Russian offensive and why it would never succeed, because it was just starting on a very poor footing from the outset, from an offensive perspective. And we saw that all of those things ended up ruining this offensive in the long run, just like we're seeing right now about a month and a half later. And going off of that, we know that the Russians have really lost their last chance. I mean, this was the last chance that the Russian Federation had, probably militarily, probably in a morale level, to be able to show that the Russian army actually has a chance of being able to still conduct a major successful breakthrough. And they aren't conducting major successful breakthroughs anymore. They just don't have the ability, even in fresh areas like Kharkiv, where there was not a major amount of defensive positions. That's also something that the Ukrainians beat themselves over the head with at the beginning of this battle, is that they said that the commanders in this area had not even built any significant or any good defensive positions anywhere within the oblast, which already let us know that if the Russians had conducted this offensive successfully, the resistance that they would have faced within the first 3 days, as reinforcements from other areas of the front line arrived, they could have actually made it to Kharkiv most likely, and the battle would have been around areas like Ruska Lazova instead of an area like Lukyansk and Ploboke and Vovchansk. But that never happened. It was a complete failure. I mean, I cannot say that enough. And it's not just a propaganda statement. This is something that really, if you were intelligent, like a Russian commander isn't, you could learn lessons off of. There were clear failings that this offensive has had from day one. One, they never tried to secure any major supply lines that could be used at the outset of this offensive. That would have been such an important thing to have starting off, meaning that they should have advanced kind of in the Vovchansk area. That axis of this offensive was not that poorly planned, although hitting Vovchansk very slowly, really by the fourth day, they finally hit the outskirts of Vovchansk, and by then Ukrainian reinforcements had arrived. That part of the offensive was poorly planned, but the idea of at least moving down this major highway, that was not a bad plan. However, the Plina direction of the offensive never even touched the E-105 highway, which would have been a major supply corridor that not only would have allowed a Russian spearhead to rapidly advance towards the city of Kharkiv, but it also would have allowed for them to be supplied and replenished by logistics forces that would have been able to move over a paved road, meaning that their speed would be greatly increased, and therefore the amount of supply availability would also be a lot higher as well. Not only that, but the Russian forces that were used in this offensive were poorly trained, of very low quality, and were a mismatch from not only multiple different brigades, but also from multiple different battalions as well. In the Western world, it has been learned over time that creating a modular army organization or an army structure is one of the most important things to being able to make sure to keep the combat efficiency that originally existed with a unit and then just move it over into another command group. It's also something that the Chinese heavily emphasize nowadays in their military doctrine as well. And that means that the basic combat structure of the U.S. Army is a brigade. And then you break that down into multiple different battalions, and these different battalions have different jobs. But the thing is that you don't have to take the entire brigade. You don't have to go, okay, let's go with the 9th Brigade. We are going to move the entire 9th Brigade and all of its battalions into the area of Novaya Tavlzhanka. Actually, what you could do is that you could take the 9th Brigade and the 12th Brigade and then look through the battalions that both of these brigades have, and then build a force, a brigade-sized force, out of those battalions that would be specifically tailored to the mission at hand, meaning the terrain that was available, the kind of objectives they would have to seize, whether they're going to be needing heavier units with more firepower or lighter units with higher maneuverability. Those kinds of things are heavily emphasized in modern battle planning, and from what we can understand, the Russians never emphasized that from the outset. They really took multiple different units of multiple different sizes. We have seen units that we have been able to confirm are regiment-sized units, which are fairly big. They're actually made up of several battalions, and they just took a regiment and then plopped it down. And then we've seen individual battalion tactical groups that have also been placed beside these entire regiments, and then also just sporadic amounts of random companies of either mercenaries or any other kind of forces that have been put down in these areas, which is a very, very poor organization. Not only does it mean that these multiple different battalions, companies, and regiments aren't of the same size and ability, but not only that, they're highly different in the way that they've been trained and what they're capable of. And that is just not a conducive thing to the battlefield that they were going to be moving into, especially considering that they didn't even have any supply lines. That was a recipe for disaster. All of this put together to me shows that this was Russia's last attempt at making the Russian army a strong and powerful force, at least in the public persona, and it completely failed. I don't know if they'll ever return to Kharkiv. If they do, it'll be a long time in the future if they even survive into a long distance into the future, but I just don't think that they will ever repeat anything like this again. I really do think that, at least for the war in Ukraine, this will go down in the same pages of history as the Battle of Verdun, the Battle of Gettysburg, or better yet, a little bit more commonly known battle, and I'm trying to think of the name because I brought it up earlier, the Battle of the Ardennes Offensive in late 1944 to early 1945. But with that, I hope that does address...
Also one other aspect I think that's being overlooked a little bit is the Russians were not able to maintain OPSEC whatsoever before they launched this offensive on Kharkiv. Because if you recall, I think it was about a week or two before the offensive was actually launched, we had put out a video literally telling everybody the Ukrainians had heard this was about to happen, and they had called in all the reserve forces they could to get to the area to basically reassure their defenses there. So to me, it seems like the Russians failing in OPSEC was one of the main reasons Ukraine was able to get there so early and block them off. If it hadn't have been for that, the Russians, like you said earlier, might have gotten much farther close to Kharkiv, and it could have gone a little bit differently. I still don't think they would have taken Kharkiv, but it would have been a harder fight if the Ukrainians didn't have the troops already in place to fight the Russians.
I would agree with that. And also, that's another thing that the Russians are very bad at so far in the war is concealment. Concealment is a very important part. Matthew actually started me on a brand new rabbit hole, y'all. Give a huge shout out to Enforcer Matt for a brand new rabbit hole. But concealment is such an important part of a modern armed force and how they are able to conduct and operate themselves. The Chinese understand this. The United States understands this. Really everyone has understood this, but the Russians do incredibly poorly at it. Usually they move their forces into very easy and visible positions to be spotted by satellite, which is then reported from the United States to Ukraine, and Ukraine pretty much gets an up-to-date, day-to-day, really almost every half-hour update on exactly where Russian forces are, where they are moving, and where new mass concentrations of forces are, and what may be happening as a result of those mass movements that have now been detected. That is something that the Russians do very poorly at, is that sometimes they either do not protect their OPSEC of where their forces are moving, or they don't really protect their forces once they arrive in an area. Funnily enough, the Chinese and the People's Liberation Army actually have specific units, entire battalions, that their specific job, their sole purpose of existence is to help conceal their armed forces when on the move. They figure out how to get an entire brigade from point A to point B without the United States being able to really tell a lot by satellite or tell a lot less about the specific brigade or how many units are actually moving. And not only that, once they start moving them into position, they also try and figure out how to hide those forces as best they can as well. The United States also has units fairly similar to that, or really concepts that are more so similar to that. But nevertheless, it is so important to be able to do that, because if you do not, you are giving so much information to the enemy that they don't even have to really work for. They get to see how many units there are so they can estimate what kind of a force size this is. Going off of that, they can estimate how serious whatever action is going to be taken is, and what possible objectives may be the aim of the Russians by the time they start conducting an offensive. And all of that was already lost by the time the Russians pushed this offensive forward, because they did not conceal, they did not try and hide any of their forces, their actual size or numbers. They made it very obvious where they were moving and what they were planning on doing, and so all of that information was relayed to the Ukrainians beforehand. And they already knew before the Russians even began their offensive how many of them there were and where they were probably going to be going, which was an absolute disaster on their end. On the other hand, the Ukrainians didn't really show their hand in the cards that much, which was a very smart move. They kept their forces near to the area, but pretty sporadically placed just really throughout all of Ukraine, so that way when the offensive began, these reserves were immediately called upon and plugged the gap that appeared to have existed beforehand, but did not exist once the end of the second day and really the beginning of the third day had come around, meaning that the Russians had already made a massive blunder by the time the Ukrainian forces had moved in, and there was really nothing that they could do either than withdraw completely from Vovchansk or try and fight, given the extremely complex situation in front of their forces. So I hope that does address that side of things incredibly well, because Matthew had a very good point with that. And with that, we are now going to be moving on from the Vovchansk offensive, and we will be moving on into something else that is fairly interesting. Before we move on into something else that's incredibly big, but isn't really happening in Ukraine, but the European Union has voted to start the accession talks, or the ascension talks. I'm not really sure if it's accession or ascension talks. Which one is it, Matthew?
It's a session.
Okay.
I said the first time and you went silent.
I didn't hear it. It didn't even pick up on the mic. But they said that they're going to be starting that next week. And a lot of people are wondering, will they be accepted? And some people are saying, a lot of people are actually saying that yes, they will be admitted into the European Union. Others are saying that they will be admitted if they can fix some issues. Others are saying that no, Ukraine just simply will not be admitted. And others are a little bit unsure. But Matthew, what are you thinking about this, and what is everyone else thinking about it? Do they think that the Ukrainians actually have a pretty serious chance of entering the European Union very soon, or no?
So a whopping 57% of the audience said yes, Ukraine will be admitted to the EU, while 26% said they will only if they can fix some issues that they're having in their country, and 8% said no, Ukraine will not be admitted. And for me personally, I think it's only a matter of time until Ukraine gets in the EU. But like the 26% kind of alluded to, there are some issues in Ukraine that must be fixed before they can actually get put into the EU. And right now, all that's been done is negotiations have been voted to begin on Ukraine's accession, and that's it. There's no like guarantee they're going to get into it or anything like that. And while we do support Ukraine, we have to also recognize there are still some corruption problems within the country that Zelenskyy has been trying to root out over the time of his term. And I don't think that's totally settled just yet. I think the EU knows that as well, and they're hoping to maybe get Zelenskyy to put some more things in place to make it more possible for them to actually join and have no issues with that. So I'm with the 25%. I think they'll join soon, but there are some things to address first. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to largely agree. I believe that there are some issues that still have to be fixed inside of Ukraine. From what we understand, there is still some lower levels of corruption, at least within the Ukrainian judicial system, that Zelenskyy has been trying to combat even before the war, but it still sounds as though, even according to Zelenskyy, that things have not exactly been a cakewalk with fighting that judicial corruption, and also some corruption on other lower levels of the government. Most of it, from what we understand, is lower level governmental corruption, which usually is not that big of an issue in most areas of the world, because to be entirely honest with y'all, there is a pretty okay amount. I'm not going to say that it's exceedingly high, though, but there is a fairly decent amount of underlying low-level governmental corruption here in the United States that goes on. And a lot of people are coming out, no, and I love the United States, but I would also be very amiss to not say something like that, especially considering that here in our state, sometimes when you deal with specific institutes of the state government, or really state government administration, not saying the actual central state government, you can find that there is just a fairly existent amount of corruption. It's not extremely harmful. It's more so a benign corruption, but nevertheless it does exist, and it is a bit of a small issue. But that's something to talk about at a later time in greater depth, but not on this stream. But beyond that, there is a larger concern about those sorts of things in Ukraine, with the possibility of bribery and other forms of kinds of corruption. Things like that usually do not fly in the EU. You can usually think of the European Union as the goody two-shoes club. You have to be a goody two-shoes all the way to be able to be a part of the European Union. That's not a bad thing, by the way. Some people would say that that sounds a good bit like it's a bad thing, and I'm trying to make it sound like it's like the European Union is a little bit too strict. But I gotta be honest, you gotta credit the European Union with being as strict as they are, because they've actually been able to raise a lot of former Warsaw Pact and Soviet countries out of heavy corruption and into pretty high levels of non-corruption due to their extremely stringent requirements and programs that really require you to have a pretty big grip on possible corruption that would arise within the government. And so I would have to say that the Ukrainians probably have a little bit more of a ways to go. And I was seeing Jay York say, "Don't downplay corruption." Well, you know, you gotta kind of downplay it a little bit, because to be entirely honest and to be entirely frank, corruption will never cease to exist. As long as people are involved in administration of a government, there always will be corruption, because there will always be bad eggs. There will always be soldiers that conduct war crimes. There will always be judges that accept bribes. There will always be politicians that may get paid off. That's just a part of people being a part of politics, or really being a part of a government or administration. But you always have to be very observant and very diligent in conducting anti-corruption campaigns and trying to find these bad eggs and root them out. I'm never one to say that an institution in its own right is a terrible and horrendous thing, but I will say that there are a small group of terrible and horrendous people that are within every single organization that constantly need to be found and rooted out to make sure that the actual institution itself continues to thrive at its best and most successful levels. And that is something that always has to be remembered about Ukraine, is that they are ongoing right now, and probably what we can say is one of the most ambitious anti-corruption campaigns that has ever been undergone in modern Ukrainian history since 1991. And while they have made a decent amount of progress, they are still a little bit of ways away, I believe, from being at the European Union's level of shininess and perfectness that would be required for them to be able to enter the EU. So I have a feeling that it will seriously be considered, but they will probably say that it has just a little bit more to go until things are perfect and totally smoothed out with Ukraine to be able to join the European Union according to the stringent standards that the EU lays out. And so with that,
Also, another interesting question here as well. If Ukraine were to join the EU and they were eventually accepted, would the currency for Ukraine go from the hryvnia? Would it go to the euro? Would that become their new currency?
well, some countries have been able to make sure that they do not accept the euro. For example, Norway, which is a part of the European Union, has been able to keep the Norwegian kroner. The United Kingdom was actually able to keep the British pound sterling. And I believe that there are some other countries in the European Union that do not use the euro. Let me actually see what countries in the EU do not use the euro. Let's see. So, actually, it's actually a very interesting number of them. 7 countries, including Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Hungary, Poland, Romania, and Sweden, are EU members, but do not use the euro. That is actually...
Oh, that's interesting. It's like before joining the Eurozone, a state must spend at least 2 years in the European exchange rate mechanism, the ERM2. That sounds complicated, above my pay grade. But also, real quick, I was reading here because I was like, what exactly are the benefits for Ukraine to join the EU? Why are they so excited about it? It looks like if you join the EU as a country, it basically opens up a huge pot of money for grants that the EU gives out to members for basically fixing roads, hospitals, and also things that involve the state. So that's obviously a pretty big deal right there. Also, they do get access to the EU economy, the open market, which is important as well, as also an open market for labor. So I can understand now why Zelenskyy wants in the EU so bad. I knew it was important, but I didn't know exactly why. So very interesting to see here. And also, being in the EU does give you some political pull as well, just from being a member of the alliance. So overall, it seems like a really good deal if Ukraine can get in it.
Also, really quickly, I got to clarify this. I was thinking about Sweden. I accidentally said, oh my God!
Damn! Provenzano coming in with a 500. Damn!
My Lord! That's actually wild. And before I forget about this, from Griffin Provenzano's unbelievable super chat right there, huge thanks to you, though. That's unbelievable. That's insane. But Norway is not in the European Union. I mistakenly said that. It's actually Sweden that I was thinking about and wanting to talk about, and then I said Norway. Huge slip up there. For some reason, I'm pretty good at not having those kinds of slip ups, but I had a Bushism, if we want to call it that, right there. It's actually Sweden. But beyond that, this is very interesting. You see, honestly, I feel like I ought to read up a little bit more about how the European Union works, because there are a lot of different parts of the European Union. Let me see if I can get this right here. Here we go. So these are all of the different parts of the European Union, I guess you could say. This is the actual proper European Union. Then you have the EFTA. Then you have all of these things that are included in the Schengen area. You have the common travel area, because the United Kingdom, as many of you all know, is no longer a part of the European Union, but they actually stayed within the common travel area, meaning, and this is actually something fairly interesting, the British still have not complete autonomy on their border restrictions. They still end up doing a lot of what they did in the European Union. Really, they do everything that they did in the European Union. It's just that the economic side of things they were removed from, which is a little bit weird. I'm just going to say this. I'm not meaning to start any argument. The whole thing about the United Kingdom being removed from the European Union was that they were going to control their borders a lot more, and all they really did was remove themselves from the European Union and its economic benefits, and then ended up keeping the whole border situation the way it was. So that is a little bit weird, I'm not going to lie. It looks like that was kind of odd from what I can understand, but nonetheless, that's what happened, and that's what we work with nowadays. But nevertheless, it's a very complex system. But anyways, moving on from that, it is very interesting to look at how the European Union works and how the gears turn. But nevertheless, I hope that we were able to address that as best we can. And before we move on into a question segment, I want to make sure to move us down into an area where there is a lot going on right now. A lot that's really starting to boil to the surface. It's not like a load of news, but we do have enough to be able to talk about tonight. Israel is pretty much going to guarantee be invading Southern Lebanon here within the next few days. We have a pretty good certainty about that. The Israeli government statements are becoming very, very clear and very sharply worded, and it's letting us know that an invasion of Southern Lebanon will most likely be conducted by the state of Israel here within maybe the next few days, maybe the next week. We are hearing information that apparently, according after the statements by the Israeli government yesterday, Hezbollah is now threatening war without restraints. And according to Hezbollah's leader, Nasrallah, he said that Israel will face a war without restraints, without rules, without limits, which is usually the way thugs and terrorists fight. But nevertheless, they did make that statement today. And we also heard that the situation is becoming serious enough that militaries of major nations like France are beginning to openly offer military support to the central Lebanese government in dealing with Hezbollah and trying to avoid an outright invasion by Israel into Lebanon. Now, I would like to make this very clear when we're talking about this. France is not offering to conduct airstrikes on Israel in support of Lebanon. That is not what they're saying. And I'll make sure to read this and then try and get this out as best as I can in kind of like a description of what's going on. But France, as well as several other unnamed countries, have reportedly offered military assistance and support to Lebanon, including airstrikes and advisors, if they decide to launch a security operation in the south of the country to push Hezbollah back to the Litani River in accordance with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701, with hopes that this may avoid Israeli invasions of southern Lebanon. What this is saying is that the French and some other countries are saying, this is about to get very out of hand. The Israelis are going to invade southern Lebanon to try and wipe out Hezbollah. And so what y'all should do in Lebanon as the Lebanese government, which, by the way, is an incredibly weak government at this time due to a whole bunch of economic calamities have been going on in the background, among many other things. They're not really in that good of a position, to be entirely honest. But nevertheless, they're saying, if you push them back south of the Litani River, which I'll be trying to get this up 1 second. Sorry, I actually got the name of the river wrong. It's the Litani River. Why in the world did I say Litani? But anyways, the Litani River, which, let me see, because we pulled this up beforehand. It doesn't really give you a good view of this here. Let me go get the Litani River pulled up on another map so that way we can have it clearly highlighted so that way we can show it to y'all. So let's see here. Let me see if I can show y'all the Litani River. So here is the Litani River area, right about here. And this is the area that they're supposed to be pushed south of. It's this area where the river literally travels just from east to west across the country. Hezbollah is supposed to be contained within that area south of the river, which is a very small area, but nevertheless, that's where they're supposed to be, according to United Nations resolution. At the moment, Hezbollah has ended up expanding their operations a lot deeper into Lebanon, and from what we understand, they are pretty much as far north as the reservoir, which is seen on this map right here, which is just east of Jazine, I believe is how that's pronounced. But nevertheless, we are seeing that the Lebanese are getting into a very precarious situation at the moment. The Israelis are on the near brink of invasion of the country, and many major countries, including France, are attempting to step in and help the Lebanese out a little bit to make sure that a full-blown invasion of southern Lebanon will not occur. If it does occur, things are most likely going to get very, very sketchy inside of Lebanon. The Lebanese central government, from what we understand at the moment, is in a very dangerous position. Due to the massive damage that was sustained during the Beirut explosion several years ago, we understand that not only is the nation of Lebanon going through a major economic depression, but not only that, the central government, due to that massive depression, is also a very weak government, exerting very little control over most of the country. Because of this, Hezbollah, in at least a power exchange with the Lebanese government, is almost par on par and may even be slightly more powerful, at least in the area of southern Lebanon. Going off of that, the Lebanese government doesn't really have a lot of options to really deal with the Hezbollah forces and push them south of the Litani River. This means that an invasion of Lebanon by Israel is most likely going to be imminent, and we can probably expect that within the next few days. Just wanting to make sure to keep y'all a little bit up to date on this, and make sure that y'all know what's about to be happening in this area, because it does seem that we will be looking at a war, a brand new war that probably will last for quite some time, occurring within this region. A lot of people have been
talking. It seems like the people of Lebanon think that something is going to break out, because I've been seeing videos come out on Telegram of people lining up at the Lebanon airport in Beirut, and they are trying to get out. They're trying to get on planes and leave the country. And it seems to be happening all over the country. Everybody's trying to get out if they can. So it seems like all the different countries, including Canada, preparing evacuations has caused people to get very fearful that it is going to happen. So they figure it's time to get out now than wait for it to actually occur.
Certainly so. Everything that we're seeing right now is starting to show the signs that everyone knows that the Israeli invasion is going to be imminent. And it's not something where we're trying to guess at it like people try to do with the Chinese. This is something that the Israelis have openly been saying for months now, is that if Hezbollah does not stop their military actions, they will invade the southern area of Lebanon. And it now seems as though that the Hezbollah forces have not ceased their military activities, and therefore Israel is now going to invade southern Lebanon as a guarantee. So we're just wanting to make sure to keep this in y'all's minds, to keep y'all up to date on this, so that way when it happens, it's not a big shock to everyone, and y'all know that this was actually something that was going to be coming down the pipe for quite some time. But a lot of people have actually been weighing in on the idea that unconfirmed sources have claimed that Israel will be invaded, actually Lebanon will be invaded by Israel within the span of 72 hours, which is really over the next 3 days. And a lot of people are wondering, is this claim true or not? And a lot of people are believing that all signs are indicating invasion at the moment, and that Lebanon will most likely be invaded by the state of Israel. Others are saying that Israel will not go that far yet, and they'll most likely hold back and continue to conduct airstrikes within southern Lebanon like they have been for a while now, but will not conduct an actual invasion. And a decent amount of people are a little bit uncertain about what will happen. But Matthew, what are people really thinking about this? Do they believe that all roads lead to Rome in this situation and that a war is inevitable? Or do they think that it's not? And what do you think about it?
So the overwhelming majority, the 65% of the audience, says that yes, all signs indicate that Israel is going to invade Lebanon in the future, while 13% said no, Israel simply won't go that far just yet. And on this, it seems to be, to me, in my opinion, that the signs seem to indicate that Israel is going to move in the direction of Lebanon. We also see, like the enforcer mentioned, the Hezbollah leadership coming on video and saying that we're going to make Israel pay. So the tensions are certainly rising between Hezbollah and Israel, and also all the other indications of evacuations and things like that also indicate that something is coming up in the future. The only part that I'm a little bit iffy on is the 72-hour mark. I'm not sure if 72 hours is actually the mark or not. I saw some people claiming earlier that a particular news outlet had said it was 48 hours, and then that news outlet came out and said, no, we never said that. It's not 48 hours, and we don't know how long it's going to be. So it may or may not be the 72 hours, but it is going to happen, in my opinion, sometime in the near future, maybe the next week or so. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that a ground invasion of southern Lebanon is pretty much an inevitable certainty, in my opinion, especially considering the diplomatic back and forth that has been had in between Israel and the Hezbollah forces within southern Lebanon. And we pretty much saw that exact same kind of exchange in between the Israelis and Hamas within the Gaza Strip. I would say that this is showing telltale signs that there will be a ground invasion coming up soon, and we ought to be ready to cover that. And I'll also let y'all know that much like we have done in the past, especially with the Middle Eastern situations, where we'll end up covering a breaking news stream immediately when something happens, and we'll do that live. We are going to do that in this instance as well. We already know that this is coming around the corner, and when it does, we will immediately go live on air with a breaking news stream, giving y'all all of the up-to-date information on what is happening with this ground invasion and where is it going. We'll try our best to make sure that that information is kept up, although I will say there is some difficulty with the Israelis as they have a very tight grip on media coverage of conflicts, and that's why we don't really cover a lot of what's going on in the Gaza Strip, is because we don't get a lot of open source intelligence and video footage to show us exactly what's going on down there. So it's very hard for us to be able to say things that would be greater than hearsay for the large part, because on this channel we do go with video and picture evidence being our pinnacle of proof. We don't really talk about much things or say a lot of things without having any kind of physical evidence to back it up. And it's really hard to cover any kind of a conflict that involves Israel because they usually make sure that media coverage is greatly limited or almost non-existent. And depending on how many Lebanese actually have phones that have cameras built into them like iPhones to be able to film and show what's going on, we're not entirely sure how many phones or really folks exist like that within southern Lebanon to be able to document what will be going on. So we will try our best when this invasion begins, but we can't guarantee a perfect and seamless form of coverage like we have had with the war in Ukraine and other situations around the rest of the world. But with that, I hope that does address this situation as best as we can, at least with the information that we have at the moment. And with that, it's now time for us to move up back into Ukraine. But before we get into any more news, we do have to take a moment to address a couple of questions, because we have had probably the most insane super chats that we have seen in a very long time tonight. I mean, truly, the largest super chat you can put in was put in tonight, and that it was absolutely unbelievable. We cannot believe that, and we got to thank you massively for throwing it in. But before I even give out the thanks, before we even call them out, Matthew, take it away.
All right, so moving into our first super chat segment of the night, we have that massive $500 donation, the maximum you can put in, from Griffin Provenzano, a channel legend. And huge shout out to Griffin for that support. And he says, LSA forever.
And I gotta say, LSA forever, baby! And I gotta thank you for the unbelievable $500 super chat, Griffin Provenzano. That is the largest one that YouTube will allow you to throw in. And it is very rare for this channel to get support like that. Back in the day, it actually used to be a little bit more common, but as the war is going on, support does continue to get a little bit lower here and there from time to time, but that's completely understandable. And we never came out here on this channel with the premise that people must support it, or support it exceedingly, in exceedingly large amounts like that. And so it is always a massive shock and a huge surprise to us when people like you, Griffin, decide that this channel is worth the maximum amount that YouTube would allow and helps us to keep this channel running. I've got to thank you massively for that unbelievable support, Griffin Provenzano, because with support like that, you help us to be able to do things behind the scenes that we wouldn't be able to do before, and we wouldn't be able to make sure to keep doing this as our full-time jobs and to be able to report on all of the news going on around the world like we have been for 850 days now. And so
Indeed. And also Griffin asked, he said, can you please give us an update on the Gaza Strip if you have a moment?
And I will try, although I was actually just covering that a moment ago, Griffin. We don't really have a lot of information that comes out of the Gaza Strip in video and picture evidence for us to get a very good picture of what's going on, but I'll try and give my best one. Currently, the Israelis have completely blockaded the Gaza Strip. They have created a perimeter along the border near Rafah with Egypt. They have also completely occupied the city of Gaza, the city of Han Yunis, and I believe they're currently involved in ground operations within the town of Rafah, or the city of Rafah. And we also understand that Israeli operations have continued to be conducted near Nusayrat camp. And although I'm not really sure if the Israelis have complete control of this region of the Gaza Strip, they have superiority over any Hamas forces that would exist around Nusayrat camp at the moment in Barej. At the moment, however, we don't really have a good idea of how well things really are going for the Israelis or how well things are really going for Hamas. We really have no good idea, because all we hear are Israeli statements that they're doing incredibly well, which is, you know, of course, great to hear, but we don't have any video or picture evidence to back that up all that much, to be quite honest. So while we hear the statements, we are not able to do our due diligence on this channel and be able to look at video and picture evidence to try and get an idea of how well they really are doing. From what we also understand, Israeli airstrikes are continuing within the area of the Gaza Strip and have been ever since really the beginning of hostilities on October 7th of 2023. From what we know, the Israelis are targeting and destroying Hamas ammunition storage sites, communication centers, command posts, and also specific individual fighters that are spotted by camera within the area around Rafah at the moment, and also possibly within the area around Nusayrat camp and Barej. However, this is really all of the information that we have at the moment, and this is really going off of everything that I've read. I haven't really been able to confirm a lot of this with video and picture evidence, like I've been saying, and I've got to make sure to say that time and time again, Griffin, because while a lot of people, and I'm sure you're one of them, really greatly appreciate any kind of summaries or updates on news that we can get, I once again have to remind not only you, Griffin, but everyone, that what I say is not set in stone. It is not the way things are, especially when we do not have video and picture evidence. Really, this could be going in multiple different ways within the Gaza Strip, and we wouldn't really know because we're only getting one side of the story from the Israelis, and we're not getting any video or picture evidence to confirm or deny the statements that are being made by the Israeli government. And so as far as we can tell, things are going fairly good, well, incredibly good for the Israelis, and currently there is a large ground operation being conducted inside of Rafah, but beyond that, we don't really have a lot of additional information. But I thank you so much for wanting a little bit of an update on the Gaza Strip, and I hope that was as best as we could make it, given the circumstances of the lack of video and picture evidence that we have, but still, thank you once again, Griffin, for that unbelievable, massive support in helping this channel to keep on running. I mean, we can't overstate how massive that is. That's literally the largest super chat you could send in, which is insane.
Massive.
And Matthew's just gonna get closer to the mic each time.
Man, you said you couldn't overstate it. I'm just overstating it, man. I'm testing the boundaries.
But still, thank you once again for that massive support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because with support like that, we will be able to say that the Lee Spring Army will never truly die. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are now going to be moving on into the next one. A huge thank you once again, and I hope that everyone realizes and appreciates that Griffin Provenzano, with that unbelievable, massive support, helps this channel to keep on running for everyone who's watching tonight to continue to be able to watch this show. Some people, and I have to make this a point because some people always complain about us reading off super chats. You know, sometimes they're haters, sometimes they're people who actually watch this show quite regularly. But the reason why we give super chatters a massive amount of praise and a massive amount of support and a massive amount of airtime on this channel is that they make it possible. We don't have sponsors. We don't have ads. The only thing that we get close enough to having as a sponsor is y'all, the viewers yourselves, and y'all support to this channel. And so anyone who supports this channel, whether it be like Griffin Provenzano, who threw in a 500, or whether it be, I believe, one of the people tonight who threw in $1. Actually, the lowest one we have tonight is $2. Every single one of them is a massive step. No one has to support this channel, and no one has to trust this channel enough or enjoy it enough to have to support it. The fact that people do is an absolute miracle, especially to us, as it makes it possible for us to do this as a full-time job. And so we always want to make sure to give the biggest amounts of thanks and appreciation to the very small amount of folks who watch this channel, who support it, and help the entire operation to be possible. And so I got to say, huge thank you once again, Griffin Provenzano, and I hope that addresses it incredibly well as to why we give such a massive thanks to these folks and make sure to call them out by name. It's not only to make sure that they know directly from us that we're incredibly appreciative and thankful, but it's really to let y'all all know who to give thanks to for this show's continued operation. Because if it wasn't for folks like Griffin, we wouldn't be able to be here every single day. If it wasn't for folks who just supported this channel in general in super chats, we wouldn't be able to be here each and every day. And y'all don't have to support it a dime, but the people who do, we are massively appreciative for, because they never had to do it in the first place, but yet they help us to be able to do this every day. And so with that, thank you so much once again, Griffin. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is another massive donation, this time from Alex Scott. Alex Scott put in that $200 donation. That's massive support, and I did not see a comment left, but I did see him in the live chat say that he appreciates the coverage very much. And of course, Alex, we love to bring you the coverage, and also huge shout out to you for that very generous support and helping to keep the channel running. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say a massive thank you, Alex Scott, for that unbelievable support as well. And thank you so much for enjoying our coverage of the news. We try as hard as we possibly can every single day to try and make sure to get this coverage out to all of y'all. It is something that we find to be a great privilege and a high honor to be able to do this for so many people, and for people to enjoy it so much that they would be here pretty much every single night. We are in the top 100s, no joke, nightly at this point, for live stream viewership in America, which is an insane thing. And folks like you, Alex Scott, with unbelievably massive support like that, help us to be able to keep up our amazing work and help to pretty much be our sponsor for this kind of stuff. And I got to thank you greatly for enjoying it and enjoying it that much that you would want to support this channel that greatly. And of course, support isn't directly correlative to appreciation. There are some people who don't really have much, but still give to this channel and support it, and it means a lot, whether it be $1 or $500. And I got to thank you massively once again, Alex Scott, for enjoying this channel and helping to support it, because folks like you, just like everyone else who's here tonight, supporting this channel and also supporting us in the live chat, help to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving into the actual Ukrainian frontline news.
All right, and this one goes to BC Skyman, the channel legend, and he puts in an $80 donation, combined support, and huge shout out to BC for always putting in that very generous support and also supporting the channel as well. And BC, I did not see a comment that you left here, but I will tell you a fun fact. I'm currently looking on my left at a very fluffy corgi, which somehow worked its way into my room, and now it's under the desk over here. It's Sheba of all the corgis, and she's right over here. So she said hello, and thank you, BC, for that support as well. And we all appreciate it. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, thank you for the massive support, BC Skyman. I wish I had a corgi under my desk. But still, the massive support means a lot, BC Skyman. And I gotta say that we are entirely grateful and entirely appreciative for being for having you as an absolute channel legend. I hope, because I believe today, and I'm hoping that today it happened, my bandages should have arrived to your mailing address that you sent me. I hope that they did, because I was told by the post office that they should be arriving there by Saturday, and today is Saturday, so I hope they finally made it. If not, they probably will be there on Monday. But nevertheless, thank you so much for the support to this channel. Thank you so much for enjoying it and always being a part of this channel, because you are an absolute rock of Gibraltar of this live chat. You have been here all the time, always making sure to watch this channel, throwing kind words and massive amounts of appreciation our way, and not only that, support that helps us to be able to keep this channel running in the background. If it wasn't for folks like you who have been here with us every single step of the way, we wouldn't have been able to have the inspiration, we wouldn't have been able to have the ability to keep this thing going, even through some of this channel's darkest times, back during the dark ages of the channel that existed all the way from October 6th of 2023 and all the way up to February 15th of 2024, which was my birthday this year. It is folks like you who have stuck with us through thick and thin that have really made this channel possible to keep on running, and have given us the strength and determination to make sure to keep this thing possible and to get the news out to y'all, even in some of the most difficult and challenging times in this channel's history. And I got to thank you so much once again for being one of those people, BC Skyman, and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are now going to be moving on from this question segment and on into the Russian Federation, as we were able to get big news that the Yesk airfield actually did have physical damage that was caused to a part of the airfield. This is the before, this is the after.
Oh, Yesk.
Yes, baby. But let's see where that was specifically at the airfield. So, where was that building? We will have to find it, Matthew. We will have to find this building. Where is it? So let's look here.
Do you see those airplanes just on the runway like that? They were just like literally sitting on the runway.
Dude,
what the hell's up with that?
Dude, it's just a jungpa. You know what I mean? It's just a little jungpa.
It's crazy.
I mean, absolutely insane. Poor maintenance. Really, poor standards even. But where in the world is this compound on this airport? Is it this? No, it can't be that. I'm doubting it would be that. Where in the world is this crap, man? Because, like, look, it looks so easy to spot when you look at it right here. It looks like a taxiway. Maybe it's somewhere in between the runways. Possibly. I can't find it, actually. Oh, interesting. Maybe it's down here somewhere. Maybe it's over on the other runway somewhere around there. Huh. I'll be dipped. I can't really find this thing, to be entirely honest. It is at Yesk Airfield. It's just that I can't really geolocate it that well. I guess because I'm blind, or I just don't have the exact GPS coordinates. One or the other. But nevertheless, a facility was hit at Yesk Airfield, and it appears to have been heavily damaged in the strike, which is great information to see, good to know, and once again showing us that the logistical efforts at this airfield will be greatly hampered, meaning that less sorties will be able to be conducted by the air wings that are present there. Meanwhile, in the city of Azov, the fire at the oil tanks finally ended up burning out. But, however, in the ensuing flames, 3 of the 6 fuel tanks that were at this fuel depot were completely destroyed, literally non-existent on satellite picture. Beautiful thing, because it means that when this refueling station comes back to operational status, it will only have half of the fuel capacity, meaning that if Ukraine hit this thing again and it burned the second time like it did the first time, they might be able to knock Azov Port and really Rostov-on-Don completely out of action for the remainder of the war, or for months until repairs would be affected on that damaged fueling node. Meanwhile, within Rostov-on-Don, we also got to see a major explosion occur, which was beautiful to watch.
Look at that. Every dog in the region wants a piece of that.
Man, they all going, wah, 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 wah. And that little fire is just beautiful. I mean, it's impressive. And we were able to get another video of the explosions that occurred within Rostov-on-Don. They listen to those. Oh!
The bass is too loud. Turn it down, Bliat.
They're always listening to loud drum and bass, and they're never going to stop listening to loud drum and bass. Boom! Oh, man. It's fun times in Rostov-on-Don. Not fun for the Russians, but it's fun for us. I'll tell you that for sure. Moving on out of the Russian Federation and on into the area of our location unknowns, we did get a couple of interesting ones today. We got to see some pictures of the 33rd Brigade in training. Take a look at these pictures. They have a Mark 19, I believe, grenade launcher. They have AK-74s. This actually looks like an RPK. And then they also have some other kind of an AK with a suppressor attached. This guy appears to have some kind of machine gun, most likely a PKP Pechnik. But nevertheless, a really cool picture right here. We also got to see them catching the shrubbery on fire, firing in the shrubbery, and then firing a, I believe that would be an AT-4, if I'm correct. But still, really nice to see them in training. Moving on from that little clip and on into our next one, we also got to see that another 2S5 Gyansin S was destroyed by Ukrainian forces in an unknown location. But we did want to confirm the loss on picture evidence here on this channel. Meanwhile, we also got to see that a Ukrainian armored car has sustained heavily armor modifications to make sure that it is as survivable as possible in a modern battlefield, meaning that they surrounded it with chicken wire. Man, they are showing this thing off like it's the new whip. And it is.
Man, I'm telling you, it is a new whip. Look at that. They even got the sick edits on it, too. I already know the music is playing, too. I can just know.
Oh, man. It wasn't that?
Uh-huh.
Dude, look at
Something
that.
like that.
Something like that. Oh, and we can see they're still welding on it, actually. And we can see that there are some smoke grenade dischargers. By the way, I was just wondering, folks, can we get an LSA in the chat? I was just wondering, like, for no particular reason. I was just wondering if we could get some in there. Now, we can also see that the turret has a specialized dome mesh that has been made over it to make sure that the turret can continue to move and operate, but it won't impede the gun's activities. The gun barrel is currently not attached to the turret at the moment, if y'all are wondering where the gun is. But now we can see inside the vehicle what this looks like, which it is incredibly cool. Don't we love to see it? I like to see the Ukrainians are trying to improve technology, but also not impede its abilities at the same time. And with that, we're now moving on from that little bit of news and on to our next one, which is the Russian casualty report, and it was significant.
Oh! Whoa! 2 Bobcats, Jack. 2 Bobcats in a day. I love to see it, Jack. I'm telling you, I love to see it. Also, is that a correction I see over there by Miss Disa? What does that say?
Miss Disa coming in with a correction to the whole Kyiv Independent, and we know that Miss Disa is correct with the number. But the Ukrainians actually destroyed 45 drones today because they didn't put down the 30 that Ukraine shot down yesterday. Meaning that Miss Disa is adjusting for that, and that means that 45 drones have to be added to the loss report, actually. So, let's read off the adjusted casualty report, thanks to Miss Disa's hard work and effort in the background. 1,010 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 11 armored personnel carriers, 23 supply trucks, 8 main battle tanks, 28 artillery systems, 45 drones, 4 cruise missiles, and 2 special equipment vehicles. Overall, it was a very good day for the Ukrainians, and we got to see that really across the length of the front lines when we got down to the video and picture evidence down in the areas from the Seberansky forest and all the way down to the Battle of Avdiivka, and a little bit of footage from Kherson. But moving behind the lines really quickly, we got to see that the Russians got hit by a JDAM. This is where the Russians are about to get hit, and there goes the building. Those JDAMs are very accurate, a lot more accurate than the Russian Fab 3000. The smoke is just enveloping the entire complex. And we see the smoke still billowing, burning even. And now that the smoke is clearing, we can see that most of the building, really 2/3 of it, is completely gone. And that's the end of that clip, but really nice to see and good to know that the JDAM was able to level some Russians. Meanwhile, we got to see a Ukrainian BMP-1 moving through an abandoned village near to the area of the Seberansky forest. Check it out. You already know the music that's playing. You could already put money on it.
What color is your Bugatti?
What color is your Bugatti? Man, I'm telling you what, my Bugatti is no color because I don't have a Bugatti. I don't need a Bugatti. But moving on to our next clip, we also got to see that a brand new modification of a BMP was spotted today by the Shadow Wizard Money Gang. And we can see that little brand new APC down there moving around. Oh, and it got hit. But now that it's been hit and it slammed on the brakes instantly, let's get it. Oh, there goes the clown car. They're off on their journey, their little marathon. And we can see that they tried to turn an MTLB into a shed. It looks like it did not work at all, and the MTLB was disabled like it would have been without the modifications. So largely, oh, dang.
Whoa, made us feel to bits.
Whoa, bro.
That's terrible. That's horrible that this happened. Not really.
Terrible.
Look at it.
Man, that thing be boining. Pitiful loss.
Someone said a waste of money. It was a waste of money because the Russians weren't ever going to succeed with that. But here's Pigeon Forge right here if you want to get a little QR code.
Yeah, fun times indeed. Meanwhile, we got to see that a T-80 BVM was also destroyed somewhere in the woods. Check it out. He's just panning that camera around. Oh, we can see a track link here. Oh my lord. It was literally disintegrated. So now so this big crater right there was actually where the tank was. You can see that just a little bit of the back of the tank survived the explosion, but the rest of the tank literally disintegrated in the explosion just from the raw power of it. Power! Strength! Psst, psst, psst.
Why is the man fixing the tread up if the vehicle looks like this?
He's trying to get that salvage money, Matthew. He's like the Russian version of Sanford and Sons.
He's like man, it's like if your house got destroyed or something, you go outside and start sweeping the sidewalk. It's like, dude, it's like the whole vehicle's gone.
Nah, man, it's very like the house is destroyed and he goes, Blitz! And then he like realigns a painting on one part of the wall that still exists and goes, whew, we almost lost it there. Like, it's like, dude, the tank is gone. Like, it literally disintegrated in the explosion. It spread across the entire area. It spread across a wider area than Chris's mom. I mean, you gotta realize this thing is a loss. Like, it's a loss, damn it! But hey, man, at least, look, what I said right there, man, it's still not as bad as what we were hearing earlier today, man. You know what I mean with them lyrics? I mean, my lord, man.
Oh.
Ugh. And that's the end of that clip, but yeah, they didn't do that well with that one. But moving on from that and down into Bakhmut, we also got to see that the Ukrainians talked to us about a turtle tank today. They actually managed to capture one, and so they immediately started making a video about it and its qualities, what it is capable of, what it can do. Here's the clip. The presenter of this video is Lieutenant Colonel Sergei Misyura. I want to make sure y'all know that before we watch the video.
Як ви вже можете бачити, це якраз трофейний російський танк «Мангал», який майже захищений від якихось FPV-дронів, але, як ви знаєте, його якраз зупинили FPV-дрони. Спочатку скидом, а потім вже добили FPV-дроном. Зараз ми подивимося саме,
Dang, bro, did you see that thing hit that drift, though? Look at it. They dropped the bomb. Bro, that thing actually pulled a drift at like 7 miles an hour. How?
Man, it did. Like, how did not like pop off the tracks or something?
Bro, they smacked that E-brake and they had the power of God on their side, and the tracks did not pop.
Зараз ми подивимося саме, як тут що виглядає, що тут видно і що з нього вийшло.
It's beautiful.
Як ви можете бачити, тут майже взагалі нічого не видно для механіка-водія. При цьому башта заштопорена, вона взагалі без снарядів, він не стріляє. Ну і взагалі, що тут стріляти? Це російський Т-62М, який був виготовлений ще в 60-х роках. Зараз він без броні, без снарядів, але використовувався як для перевозки, я так розумію, особового складу. Тут при цьому був взятий в полон саме екіпаж. Особового складу з ним не було. При цьому, як бачите, динамічний захист, який в ньому є, він порожній, боєкомплект відсутній, гармата заштопорена, башня заштопорена, він просто використовувався як таксі. При цьому
So pretty much what the guy is describing here is that everything that would make the tank a tank does not exist. There is no reactive armor inside of the ERA tiles, a big no-no, meaning that it practically has no armor in a modern sense. The gun does not work. It has no ammunition available for the gun either. And also, the driver and the commander and the gunner and the loader, if they're even in the vehicle, have absolutely no visibility whatsoever. In fact, the turret is locked in place, meaning that the turret cannot even traverse. And of course, with the gun being disabled, there is no gun to really operate in the first place. This means that this entire vehicle has been moved from being a tank. It's really more so of an armored personnel carrier, which is what we're going to classify these vehicles going forward. But they're probably some of the worst armored personnel carriers that we've seen, because they don't even get the use of a coaxial machine gun or a machine gun of any kind to at least provide a minimal amount of firepower when on the move or when conducting any kind of combat operations. So this is probably one of the worst armored personnel carriers currently in the war, although its base design is off of a tank.
Головним його захистом був якраз реб, який висів по кругу. Зараз його відповідно немає, ми його досліджуємо. Але дуже цікаво, що це таксі порожній, захищений ребом для перевозки особового складу. Як я вже неоднократно говорив на стрімах, саме отакий сарай-мангал, він захищає особовий склад від якихось там, можливо, уламків, але головне, щоб тут був робочий реб, який буде захищати, щоб дрони не долітали. Тому що якщо долетить, ця броня не сильно спасе. Але головне, що в танка потім втрачається якраз його вогнева міць, він не може стріляти, він нічого не бачить, він не може крутити своєю баштою. Тому використовуватись може тільки для таксі. І от для такого таксі вони вибрали саме з якихось елементів, я не знаю, електрощитової. Вони вибирали метал, де вони тільки могли знайти, вони їм обварили, потім по кругу поставили реб без камер, тобто без спостереження. Все, що бачить механік-водій, це там 2 трімплекса і все. Але як ми його збили? Ми його збили, точніше зупинили. Зупинили скидом. Скидом якраз був збитий на цьому катку, як бачите, елемент резини. Тобто ця резина була збита, і він тоді був зупинений. І деякі якісь є пошкодження. Збили каток, збили резину, зупинили танк. Далі вже потім добивали FPV-шкою зверху. Але давайте ще подивимося, що знаходиться в нього всередині, тому що це також варто уваги. Ось так виглядає це їхнє підсобне приміщення. Тут, можливо, жив особовий склад, тому що тут є спальні мішки, тут є їхні продукти харчування, їхня вода. Так виглядає саме башта без броні, без динамічного захисту, звичайна башня Т-62М. При цьому з закритим люком заряджаючого, і тут сидів, я так розумію, командир. Єдине, що тут було нового на цьому всьому танку 60-х років, це радіостанція, тому що нова антенна, і там видно провода, до якої підключалася радіостанція. І, звісно, реб, який був по кругу, і підключався за допомогою звичайної польовку, яку роблять зв'язківці для тапіка ТА-57. З усіх оптичних засобів, які має цей танк, що в командира, що в навідника, в цьому танку сараю нічого не видно, тут бачить тільки механік-водій. При цьому в цей люк я залізу спокійно і подивлюся, як там без механізму заряджання заряджаючи.
Shit. Man, I think just called him so fat.
I think he may have. Dude, that thing is
Тут
nasty.
місця набагато більше, при цьому до сих пір сліпота і нічого не видно.
You can't
І
see
зараз ми
Jack.
поговоримо саме з механіком-водієм, який приїхав на цьому танку і до цієї точки, де ми зараз знімаємо. Як цей танк Т-62М, як він себе показує? Стара рухлядь разом з цим сараєм? Чи
Під час пересування дуже гримить цей сарай. Тихенько не під'їдеш там, де треба. Це по-перше. По-друге, двигун трохи вже застарілий, пускає дуже велику димову завісу за собою тягне. Ну і такі, він вже уставший. Це вже не та техніка, на якій повинні проходити якісь дії.
Але все одно мотор працює, заводиться, він може їхати. Задня передача працює.
Так, всі передачі працюють. Не так сказати, що відмінно, але включити їх можна. Так як перша і остання, вони всі включаються, але з великим натягом.
Що видно механіку-водію в такому сараю? Яка в нього обзорність? Що видно саме?
Механік-водій бачить тільки вперед, якщо йде по похідному, в нього більше обзор. Якщо йде по бойовому, в нього взагалі обзору дуже маленький.
Тобто, можливо, вони навіть їхали по похідному, або хтось з боку сидів і вказував йому дорогу,
так.
тому що, я так розумію,
Інакше не можна.
бортового
Неможливо.
радіозв'язку не було з екіпажем.
Неможливо.
Хтось, можливо, сидів з боку і вказував
Хтось
йому.
коригував всі дії їхні.
І ось так цей російський танк «Сарай», який був саме придуманий для того, щоб захищатися від FPV-дронів і від скидів, був зупинений якраз від скиду. І ось так уже FPV-дрон зупинив цей танк. Це, бачите, пробоїна в цьому танк-сараї. І, як я вже говорив, башта заштопорена, без снарядів, він не стріляє взагалі. Мав захист РЕБ і одну єдину радіостанцію, яка також була знята. Сліпий танк «Сарай» тепер вже в лавах Збройних сил України.
Blind, loud, and stupid. Nice
Just
catch.
like Chris's mom or hot dog, man. Dude, your pick. Oh, man. But with that, that's the end of the clip, and that was the complete breakdown by a Ukrainian commander himself of the turtle tank from beginning to end, really covering every single detail possible. Moving on from that clip and a little bit further down the lines, we also got to see a sniper that was a part of the 4th Rubish Brigade. A really cool little ghillie suit the fella's got, and also a really nice rifle as well. It looks like it's based off of a AR platform. I don't know what caliber. It's most likely some kind of an AR-10, I would assume, just based off of how big that magazine appears to be. And also how short it is as well. But still, an incredibly interesting rifle the guy's got, although we don't know a lot about the rifle. But moving on from that and on into our next clip, we did get to see that an FPV strike triggered a massive explosion behind the line. Excuse me. It sounds like we got some Sabaton up in here. But we can see the buildings that are about to be hit, and they're about to disappear. I mean, like, there's no joke. They're gone. Like, there they go. Oh my God. Dude. The whole area's gone. They wiped out a grid code. A whole zip code is gone.
Man, it raised the dirt, literally, like from the whole area. Well, what is that exactly? What did you already say? What the bomb that was?
I don't know what it was. An FPV drone hitting this thing. I don't know what was in it though that exploded. But going off of the color of that, it looks like nitric acid because we've seen an explosion like this before with that kind of orange color. Probably nitric acid. Pretty toxic
That's
stuff.
Gonna be
actually.
lovely. Yeah, that's terrible. I would hate to be in downwind of that.
Oh man, I'm telling you. Oh, dude, I would really hate to be downwind of that, dude. Imagine, dude, getting a whiff of that up your nose.
You're finished, probably.
Oh, dude, it's over. It's so freaking jover.
Also, some people said it's a fertilizer plant.
Well, it's gone now. I mean, I don't think there's anything left. There's the crater from the epicenter of the explosion. And that's the end of that clip. Huge shout out to Pavlik. But moving on from that and into our next clip, near to the area of Ochratine, we also got to see an amazing video from United 24 talking about the M1 Abrams in Ukrainian service. One of the first videos we've gotten from the United 24 about the actual Abrams in service. So, let's check it out. Bro, they put that eagle up in there, man. They went.
In
That's
early
our
2023,
Man, I'm telling you, actually, that's a falcon, funnily enough. You know, like that bald eagle scream that you always hear in like the movies and everything? That's not a bald eagle, actually. I believe it's a red falcon that makes that screech. The actual bald eagle sounds more like a seagull, to be quite honest. Like, it's really weird because you'd think it sound menacing, but it's like. And you're like, dude, that's not like an eagle. That's like a seagull, dude. But it's an actual bald eagle. That's what they sound like. But anyways, getting back to the clip.
the United States announced it would send 31 M1A1 Abrams tanks to Ukraine. The M1A1 SA variant, though not the newest, was the one that got here the fastest. Still, it was crazy to think that these tanks would be rolling alongside the Ukrainian army. By September, the tanks had arrived in Ukraine, but the military command was waiting for the right moment to unleash them. February 2024 finally saw those tanks deployed for their first combat mission, rolling in to stabilize the situation around Avdiivka. We are back in the Avdiivka area where the battles are taking place much further than Avdiivka and the Ukraine is losing ground. This is the American veteran, the M1A1 Abrams tank of the 47th Mechanized Brigade, with all the labels translated to Ukrainian. All of such tanks are currently deployed here in the east of Ukraine, and we've heard mixed reviews on their performance, their condition. There were even rumors that these tanks have been withdrawn from the battlefield, but thankfully we have finally the opportunity to talk to the crews and find out what is really true and what's not. In movies, tankers brag about having the best job in the world. But I doubt they would agree with that after half a year of fighting near Avdiivka, where daily enemy attacks are your reality. For your understanding, 37 combat engagements were recorded on June 17 alone. And it shows. The tanks are covered with sand and mud, and the crew is exhausted. During this time, they have already lost their brothers in arms.
Most of our tasks were preventing the defense from being breached. We focused on stopping light vehicles from passing through and infantry from entering our positions. But most of the fighting was done at a distance. There were times when we shot at tree lines, literally 700 meters away, trying to dismantle them with our fire. There was one case where a Lancet drone came at us while we were standing still waiting for the order. The branches above us saved us. That's one I won't forget anytime soon. The tanks themselves held up well. Those first missions without extra protection were rough, and we took some losses. Things are a bit better now, though. We've managed to add some protection, and the tanks are performing as expected. We keep working. That's what we do.
This right here is Arad, the reactive armor for the Abrams tank, and as you can see, the soldiers install it on the turret of the tank by themselves, completely DIY. Because the standard armor of the turret proved to be not enough for the modern battlefield. That's why the crews, they installed American reactive armor and in some areas even the Ukrainian Contact 1 reactive armor on the tank.
It is called reactive armor. If hit directly by ATGMs, UAVs, and Lancets, it can withstand anything. We designed, welded, and installed it ourselves.
But armor's not the only thing that needs refinement. Next to us, under the scorching sun, a team of repairmen works on an Abrams tank, swapping out its engine. This engine has a stunning 1500 horsepower. But at nearly 40 years old, it was not prepared for the challenges of the Donetsk region.
These tanks are old. There are problems with seals in various parts. When it sucks in all the dust, it damages engine parts, and the tank loses thrust and power. The only reason
Well, actually, really quickly to clear up that one, that was already known by 1991 in the Gulf War, and it was just found out that you have to regularly clean out the filters, and you can pretty much avoid really any kind of discernible or major engine damage by just regularly cleaning out the filters. So if they're talking, like, no disrespect to the engineering team in the video, but if they're talking about the engine is sustaining serious damage, it's because they're not regularly cleaning out the filters to the engine enough, and they're just allowing it to run until it starts damaging the engine, which is something that you're not supposed to do, according to the Department of the Army, at least from what I understand.
The reason this is happening is because of age. Does their age affect your work in any way? It's a little inconvenient because spare parts are sent from abroad, and if you need to change something right now, it can be problematic. We change what we can, and if we can't, we have to wait for the parts. And it takes time.
Time is a decisive factor, and in this case it costs human lives. First, the Ukrainian army had to wait for the Abrams to arrive. Then the crews waited for the right armor, finally assembling it themselves. With this in mind, I asked, is there anything you're waiting for right now to stop the Russian assaults?
We need long-range missiles and fighter jets, aviation. They have a lot of aircraft, and they're terrorizing us with guided aerial bombs. I saw it myself. I was lying in a dugout when a Russian aircraft started circling overhead. It dropped a bomb just 70 meters away. 3 times it made approaches, firing at our tree line with bombs. Thankfully, we're still here. We lack aviation right now, and their air force is hurting us a lot. They're dropping guided bombs on our guys in the trenches, basically just smashing them. It's very difficult.
But that's the end of the clip, and really interesting to see Abrams in Ukrainian service. Moving on from that and into our next clip around Berdichi, we also got to see that a shot down Ukrainian drone that the Russians started filming ended up blowing up when they started recording it. Here's the clip.
Снайпер с первого выстрела, блядь.
Look, блядь, it's a Ukrainian drone. We shot it down. Thank God. We're all safe and alive. Nothing bad can ever happen to us ever. Amen, amen, блядь.
Извините, друзья.
Nothing bad ever. О, блядь!
Я себе! Вот это да!
О, блядь.
Ебашуха. Вот это кадр.
And with that, that is the end of that clip, and moving on from that and into our next one, we also got to see the 110th Brigade was using the RM-70 Vampire, a Czech-provided MLRS of Soviet vintage, but still very potent, at least on the modern battlefield, and wonderful to see this thing still in military service with Ukraine. Moving on from that and even further down the line and into Donetsk, we did get to see a mass GMLRS strike occurring somewhere around the city. We don't know why, and we don't know what it hit yet, but hopefully we'll have information on that by tomorrow during the Sunday night fundraiser. And we can see this interesting shaped cloud above their heads. But with that, that's the end of that clip. I'm sure Chris's mom is very excited to see a cloud like that. But we're now going to be moving on from that low clip and on into our next one near Krasnoyarivka, where we got to see that a Russian T-80 BVM was roasting. And there it is. Burn, baby, burn. And with that, that's the end of the clip right there. But not bad to see. And it's wonderful to know that things like this can always look so well. It's wonderful to see, and good to know that the tanks are toasting and roasting out there. Moving on out of all of those clips and down into Kherson, we also got to see Estrella shoot down Azala. This was from the 36th Marine Brigade, still operating in the area, with some of their reserves currently involved in combat up in the Kharkiv region, near Vovchansk. And who's
Zala
busted?
zala zing, zala zala zing. What'd you say?
And who's busting what now? I just saw something about that in the chat. I was like, oh, what? But anyways, moving on from that bit of news down in Kherson, wonderful to see. We also got the air defense report as well, which was very successful. 7 X-101 missiles were shot down. 4 Calibers were destroyed. 1 Iskander was destroyed as well, along with 13 Shahed 136s. It was an incredibly good day for the capital air defense perimeter. And with that, it is now time for us to move on to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 850 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is the speech.
Bitch.
Дорогі українці, українки, зараз у Харкові ще триває розбір завалів на місці влучання російської авіабомби. 4 керовані авіабомби вдарили по місту. Це абсолютно прорахований терор. Одна з бомб зруйнувала житловий будинок у центральній частині міста поруч з автовокзалом. Станом на зараз відомо про більш ніж 40 поранених і травмованих у місті. Усім надається необхідна допомога. 3 людини у Харкові загинули від сьогоднішніх ударів. Мої співчуття рідним та близьким. Рятувальна операція складна, був обвал конструкції будинку. Але рятувальники ДСНС України, місцеві служби, всі, хто залучений, роблять все, щоб допомогти людям максимально. І так само максимально ми працюємо, щоб здобути Україні можливість повноцінно відповідати на такий російський терор. Лише від початку цього червня росіяни застосували проти України вже більш ніж 2400 керованих авіабомб. Із них близько 700 проти Харківщини, проти наших позицій, проти наших міст та громад на Харківщині. Завдаються такі російські удари і по Донеччині, і по іншим нашим прифронтовим та прикордонним регіонам. Просто щоденно. Україна потребує необхідних сил і засобів, щоб знищувати носії цих бомб, зокрема російську бойову авіацію там, де вона є. Потрібен цей крок. Я вдячний усім партнерам, вдячний Америці за сильні рішення, яке допомогло нам стабілізувати ситуацію в прикордонні Харківщини. Ми отримали змогу знищувати російські ракетні пускові установки поблизу кордону і скупчення російських окупантів. Такі рішення потрібно продовжувати. Значне зниження російського ракетного терору проти Харкова і області доводить, що це абсолютно реально. Убезпечити наші міста, наші громади від російських бомб. Тому сучасні системи ППО для України «Петріоти» і прискорення тренування наших пілотів для F-16, і що особливо важливо, достатня далекобійність нашої зброї – це те, що дійсно необхідно. Необхідно для захисту життя і виключно для цього. Я дякую всім в світі, хто нас у цьому підтримує. Російський терор повинен програти. І це інтерес кожного, хто хоче жити у світі без війни, яку терористи завжди поширюють, завжди, коли не програють. І сьогодні я заслухав доповідь главкома Сирського та міністра оборони України Умєрова щодо забезпечення наших сил, постачання від партнерів. Головком та міністр доповіли також про свої контакти з партнерами і наші очікування. Ми вдячні за затверджені пакети, але вони нам потрібні повністю і на полі бою, без затримок. І щоб все те, про що ми домовлялись з президентом Байденом, було реалізовано. Також я хочу відзначити рятувальників ДСНС України, весь колектив служби, кожного і кожну, хто працює, щоб зберегти якнайбільше життів наших людей. В усіх регіонах, в кожному місті. Дякую вам, Харківщина. Особливо проявили себе цими тижнями Михайло Тебенев, Іван Лобанов, Олександр Омеляненко, Олександр Мазур та Юрій Мацаєнко. Дякую, хлопці. І ще Київщина, пожежно-рятувальні частини області, Ярослав Бровченко, Олександр Борзенець, Богдан, Каченко, Сергій, Неділько, Тимофій, Вишня. Дякую вам та усім працівникам ДСНС України, усім місцевим службам, які працюють для людей, кожному поліцейському та волонтеру, які допомагають. Ще одне. Донеччина, наші воїни. Покровський напрямок, Торецький, Курахівський, Краматорський, дуже жорсткі бої, десятки російських штурмів щодня. Дякую кожному солдату, сержанту та офіцеру, які захищають наші позиції і стримують окупанта. Дякую усім нашим воїнам за силу. Слава Україні!
And Herom Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President
Herom Slava.
Hey, there he is. He finally got
I was
it here.
fighting for my life, man. I was fighting for my life.
Man, whenever I hear you not say Herom Slava, I'm like, man, we just going to keep rolling and act like that did not happen, man. I was like, you'll unmute it eventually. But with that, that is the end of the speech from President Zelenskyy, and that is the beginning of a brand new and incredibly fun segment on this night's stream, where we get to talk to all of y'all. It is one of the most fun segments that we get to have, because after really covering this news for almost 2 hours now, we get to sit back and get to talk to all of y'all, joke about things that we've seen today, heard about today, and answer some serious questions in between. Even sometimes just do some silly things like hood reviews or talking about food or something else like that. It's always a fun time, though, and we absolutely enjoy it every single night. And I hope that y'all all stick around with us, because y'all will absolutely enjoy it as well. I am certain of it. I'm sure of it, as a matter of fact. But with that, Matthew, take it away.
All right, so it's now time for the legendary and highly anticipated final question segment of the stream. Every single night, we get right here. We first go through the polls, then the super chats, and then the Morse code, and then the live chats. So first up, we have the poll question, and it says, Ukraine says the U.S. still has restrictions on U.S. weapon usage inside of the mainland Russia, and it prevents Russian airbase strikes. And what are your thoughts? 48% said the U.S. is very worried about Putin's response if the range was expanded, while 21% said the U.S. really doesn't trust Ukraine to be wise, and 19% said the U.S. is playing games with Ukraine. And this was somewhat of shocking news to me, because I was under the impression that the U.S. had given the all clear, according to the statements by U.S. officials, to use weapons anywhere in which the Russians attacked from, meaning literally anywhere inside of Russia where they launched missiles or attacks from that spot. But apparently, that is actually not the case. And we've been told by two Ukrainian officials that they're not able to strike a pretty good number of key Russian air bases with U.S. weapons because of this restriction in place. And Enforcer, there's actually a Twitter post on our profile page on Twitter. If you'll go take a look at it, it's Status 6 Military and Conflict News, and it shows a map of the potential range of Ukraine's weaponry that they've been given by the United States that they really cannot use that far away because of these restrictions. And that map would give us a ton of context as to what we're talking about.
Boom, bada boom, baby. So here we go.
And there it is. So you'll see on this map right here, there are air bases outside of the areas that are in color right there, which Ukraine cannot strike. They can't strike those targets where there's an airplane target or you see the little airplane icon, because that is outside of the range that the United States allows them to hit. So there's a lot of them. In fact, most of the air bases are outside of the range they're allowed to hit. So to me, this seems like it's pretty dumb. We should allow Ukraine to hit the air bases, because that's the whole point we gave them ATACMS, was to defend their territory. And right now they're not able to defend to the max because of this restriction. So for me, the reason why I think they're doing this for the U.S. purposes, I would say that they're probably worried about Putin's response. They're trying to de-escalate once again, which has failed time and time again, but nonetheless, the U.S. is trying to de-escalate. That's not going to work. But I'm with the 48%. It's probably the reason why. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with the 48% as well. It doesn't really make that much sense. The weapons have an incredibly long range, and we should allow them to use the complete range of the ATACMS. But nevertheless, they do not. This only puts one Russian airfield, Kalino, under threat. None of the other existing airfields are currently under threat at the moment. And I'd have to say, let them bomb them all. Remove the restrictions and allow them to strike anywhere within the Russian Federation that they can practically reach. Moscow is still out of range of all American weapons that have been provided so far, so there's no threat or concern of them striking Moscow with an American weapon. It's really just all of the air bases that we can see right here are under considerable threat. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. I do believe that the United States, much like Matthew was saying, is also scared of possible further escalation by the Russians, although I believe that that should not be our concern. We should seek to escalate at this point, and then try and see about stepping down the Russians and de-escalating. We'll say, we'll stop doing this, but y'all have to do this, and then move from that direction. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on into the questions. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our first super chat of the final segment is going to go to another legend, this time Walter A. Lakota Jr., the LSA bosun, and he puts in a $50 donation. And huge shout out to Walter for that generous support as always. And he said, Aloha, Enforcer Matt, and LSA from OG Ellison Bosun. He says, coming to you all from Cadiz, Spain, working on a ship.
Dang.
And it seems that Ukrainian army is preparing the front lines for air support in a strategic move. And take one from the chat.
And here is Cadiz. And I hope you ain't staying at the Hotel Playa. I had to throw that one in, man. I just saw Hotel Playa.
Man, you know Walter. Actually, Walter's not a player. Walter's a solid guy. He's not a player.
Walter is that hard-working 9-to-5 guy who is the average American citizen, and I appreciate you greatly, Walter E. Lakota, for being the OG Ellison bosun and being an upstanding American citizen. But moving on from that, really cool to hear that you're in Cadiz, because I've heard of the city of Cadiz before, actually, just out of random. But it is really cool to know that you're here. Let's look at some of the pictures of Cadiz, and let's see what we got down here. Man. This almost looks fake. Dang, bro. You good?
Excuse me. Man, I almost sneezed my head off.
Aw, man. But anyways, man, this actually is a pretty interesting looking place. I would like to actually see Cadiz in Spain one day. I would really like to see a lot of places. Y'all have really made me want to start traveling. All of y'all who watch this channel, because y'all always be like, hello from such and such place, and we'll look at it and it looks so cool, and then I'm like, man, we gotta go there, and then we never go there because we're still working. We'll never stop working. We won't stop working until we die. But beyond that, I gotta say that this is really cool to know that you're in Cadiz. I'm guessing that you're in one of these. Wait a minute. Dry docks. There are dry docks in. That's why I know Cadiz. Isn't that? Like, hang on. Let me go pull up Cadiz. Let me go to Wikipedia. Hang on. Because I be dipped. I think I know why I know Cadiz now. Wasn't this where the Spanish built a lot of their naval vessels? Some of the largest ones they had. The Carthaginian under Rome's rule. Forget all that shit. Just I need to know. Let's see. Hang on. Hang on, during the age of exploration. Let's see. Oh, Christopher Columbus sailed from Cadiz. That may be one of the reasons why I know the city. Let's see. A series of failed raids by Barbary Corsairs. If y'all don't know who those are, really quickly to explain this, the Barbary Corsairs were actually a group of, really was a massive amount of pirates that were actually from the Barbar States, which existed in northern Africa, and a main part of their trade, or really how they made money, was to raid coastal villages in Europe, and particularly enslave white Christians for the slave trade in the Ottoman Empire, and usually they would be sold off to conduct not so much labor like many people would think of as slaves. It was more of a different kind of service that these slaves would provide that YouTube wouldn't even be happy about if I said, but that was generally what they would steal, well, what they would generally kidnap white Christian Europeans for specifically. They couldn't do it to Islamic peoples, however, because it was a specific rule, because these were Islamic pirates. They could not do that. And also, you know, something I was thinking about Matthew, like with Islamic pirates, is that when you think of pirates, man, you always think of yar, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. But in the Islamic world, it's not halal to drink alcohol. So what did they say? They'd be like, yo, yar, har, har, and a bottle of water. it's like I don't know what they say. It's like, what did they do? But anyways, beyond that, apparently there were multiple attempts to try and seize Cadiz by the Barbar pirates, most likely to put most of the population into slavery. It appears to have failed, according to the information. But I'm trying to see. Let's see. The attack delayed. City suffered. I'm trying to find out because for some reason I swear that at some point in history, Cadiz was a major shipbuilder. For some reason, in the back of my mind, that's like a thing that Cadiz did. I'm trying to find out if they did. Let's see. Let's see here. Dang, man, where is it? Like, I know that they did it. Like, for some reason, I just know. But I gots to know. Oh, my God. Wow, it got hot in August one year in Cadiz. It was 109.4. Sheesh. That would be pretty high.
You know, it's pretty hot here right now, too, down here in the south in Alabama. It's scorching if you go outside. Like, the heat indexes are so high, it's almost like 100 every day now.
Yeah, it's insane, actually. But let's see. I'd be dipped. They don't bring it up. I hate that because it looks like they have a major shipbuilding yard right here, even still, at least for Europe, and they don't say anything about it historically. That's sad to me. You would think they would. Also, look, a naval vessel. Isn't that cool for the Spanish Navy? I'm assuming. But anyways, beyond that. Really cool to hear that you're here, Walter A. Lakota. And also, I would say that the Ukrainian army is preparing the front lines for air support. It looks as though that they keep on bringing that over and over into the picture, at least for all of us. Like they just did in that United 24 video about the Abrams. They somehow inserted that there wasn't enough air power for the Ukrainians. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and helping this thing to be possible because it is absolutely incredible to know that folks like you always enjoy this channel and help it to be possible. And not only that, adds so much variety to the kind of viewers that we have here. And so with that, and thank you so much.
And also, I see here that Walter is talking about in the live chat here. He's talking about his experience there in Spain so far. He said the ship has no AC. So they're all staying at the hotel right there, the hotel in the place. I won't call off the name of it, but a very nice hotel on the spot. Walter, that is crazy to hear. That ship has no air conditioner on it, especially knowing how hot it gets there. That's wild. So I'm glad you are staying in a hotel because that could be a rough stay if you didn't have the hotel air conditioner. That's rough.
Man, dude, you die a heat stroke, man. I mean, especially with like temperatures getting up on the average in this area in the 80s and the 90s per day, and probably having a lot of humidity considering how close it is to the coast, I'm assuming. That would be pretty rough. I mean, I would not be able to handle that long. I'd probably die. So good thing that you're in a hotel and staying safe out there in that heat, because the heat's getting people these days. I mean, it's getting so hot out there, people are actually just dropping dead from the heat alone, which is insane. I always wonder, how do some of the animals deal with it? You know, animals that are used to certain kinds of temperatures, and then it's like 20 and 30 degrees warmer throughout the entire season, like white-tailed deer in Alabama. I wonder how they're dealing with the heat. Because I would have to believe it would probably be very difficult for white-tailed deer to deal with this kind of heat that we're currently going with right now in Alabama, because it gets hot here, sure. But when I was a kid, I remember that it getting into the low to mid 90s was pretty wild. And now it's getting up into the low 100s, including humidity, which is a really crazy thing. Like, it's like, no joke, it is 98 or 99 degrees most days down here right now without the humidity factored in. Then with humidity, it'll feel like 103 or something along those lines, because we usually have like 80 to 90% humidity down here pretty much every single day. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, Walter A. Lakota. And thank you for being an absolute channel legend. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Dixie LaFleur, who puts in a $50 donation. Huge shout out to Dixie for that support. Very generous, and thank you as well for supporting the channel and also the work. And they said, I appreciate all the work that is put in to bring us the news.
And I gotta say, thank you for the massive amount of support, Dixie LaFleur. And thank you for enjoying all the hard work we put into this to get you all the news. I gotta say, we always say it's hard work, but that doesn't mean that we hate the work. We love the work. It means so much to us that we actually get to share the news with all of y'all. Y'all gotta remember, we dropped out of law school to do this. Like, this is what we want to do. This is what we love doing. This is something incredible. And I got to thank you so much, Dixie LaFleur, for enjoying this channel greatly, helping to support us so that way we can keep working so hard to get the news out to you. And, of course, enjoying the news that we do get out as the end product. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And I hope that that does address that incredibly well. And thank you so much once again for making this channel a reality tonight, Dixie. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Jason Carpenter, who put in a 25. And thank you very much, Jason, as well. He said, hi, guys, and another great show today. I just wanted to show my support, and after midnight, I will be half a century old. And you're still killing it, bro. You're killing it. And also, happy early birthday to you, Jason. I hope you have a good birthday.
And I hope you have a great birthday as well, Jason Carpenter. Turning 50, half of a century. That is something right there. And I got to say that I hope you have an amazing birthday. At least in our time zone, you still have about 54 minutes left. But in your time zone, it may have already passed. But I hope that you have an incredible birthday tomorrow. And I hope that you're able to really cherish the folks you have around you and really enjoy that you've turned 50 years old. Because it is always a wonderful thing to know that folks have been able to make it into another year and continue to survive on in this harsh, cruel world that we have. That is such an interesting and enjoyable experience nonetheless. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Jason Carpenter. I wish you a happy early birthday, and I hope that everyone in the live chat wishes Jason Carpenter a happy early birthday. He's been here forever. He's probably, I mean, honestly, Matthew, I think he's been here with us since he was 48. So he's been with us for quite some time, and I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to be possible and helping it to keep on running, because folks like you will make it possible for us to be here when you turn 51. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to John Garner. John Garner threw in a combined 3 super chats tonight, each a $20 donation for a combined $60 support. And a huge shout out to John for that generous support. The first one he put in said, a shout out to all my friends. Hello, my friends. And I think about all of you. And he puts in a big heart.
And a shout out to you, John Garner, who has certainly become one of our friends in the course of running this channel. You've been around long enough for us to get to know you on what I would believe to be a very friendly level. And I got to thank you so much once again for being here with us tonight and giving a huge shout out to all of your friends here in the Lee Spring Army, because I'm sure they're thinking about you all the time as well. And I got to thank you so much once again for that support and helping this channel to keep on running and making it possible. And with that, we are on to the next one from John Garner. And so what do we got?
And our next one from John says, hold on, I'm still breathing. I'm not dead yet.
Oh.
I'm glad to hear that, John. I am glad to hear that.
We are happy to hear you're not dead yet, John Garner, and I don't think you're going to be dead anytime soon. You keep hanging in there, Chief. You keep hanging in, and we'll keep hanging in. You know what I mean? Yes, sir. But still, with that, thank you so much once again. And I didn't think you were dead. I didn't think you weren't breathing. I thought you were still alive. But that concerns me a little bit. Are you okay, John? Are you okay? But with that, we are on to the last one from John Garner. And so what do we got, Matthew?
And this one says, I love my LSA.
And everyone loves the Lee Spring Army. And I got to thank you so much once again for the massive support that you've thrown in tonight, John Garner, in those 3 super chats. That is absolutely incredible support and helps this channel to keep on running. And of course, you're one of the folks who makes it possible for us to have a Lee Spring Army to keep talking about and keep working for at the end of every day. I got to thank you so much for being one of those folks who have been here with us through thick and thin, through times that were great, through times that were not so great. But nevertheless, enjoyed the news that we covered and always stuck around supporting this channel and the folks behind the scenes, really Matthew and me, who make this thing possible on a near day-to-day basis. Really a daily basis at this point, including Mondays, which is crazy to think about. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address all 3 of your super chats incredibly well. And thank you for being an old guard and a channel legend as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Marion Deemer, another channel legend, of course, who puts in a $20 donation. And they said, thank you for all that you do.
And thank you, Marion Deemer, for all that you've done with this channel. You've done so much, and we got to thank you massively once again for that support and making this channel possible. And thank you so much for enjoying all that we do. All that we do is a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of people who watch this channel each and every night. Just right now, 2 hours and 10 minutes exactly into the show, 60,000 people have watched it so far. Put that into perspective. The work we do takes maybe for me, about 6 hours a day because of the pre-stream prep and then the stream itself. Really, it gets up to 8, especially including the videos, the scripts, everything else. Well, actually, it gets way up higher than that because there was that one time that I did like literally just a few days ago. It was like 28 hours, and it felt like I never stopped working except for maybe like an hour here and there in between. But we put in an endless amount of work on this channel. I know Matthew also puts in a large amount of work as well behind the scenes, running the merchandising, doing a lot on Patreon. Actually, he's actually posted a lot on Patreon, and not only that, he also does a great deal moderating this chat and also coming up with polls and other things. He puts a lot of time into this channel as well. And all of that work every single day, probably amongst the two of us, we put in about 14 to 16 hours a day combined out of all of us. Well, out of the both of us. And what's crazy about that is that y'all alone put in an insane amount of time. A literal insane amount of time. Just put it into perspective. Just yesterday alone, y'all watched 57,000 hours of this channel. Just yesterday. We put in 16 hours of work at the largest number that we can come up with for y'all to watch 57,000 hours of what we do. That is crazy to me. Absolutely insane. The amount of time that y'all put into this channel is nuts. Like, it really is, because let me do the math here really quickly. 57,000 watch hours, all right? And then we divide that by 3 hours because that's the length of a Forrest Gump movie. Just yesterday, y'all collectively watched 19,000 Forrest Gump movies back to back, and that's how much content of this channel that y'all watched just yesterday. That's crazy. It's insane. And I gotta thank you so much, Marion Deemer, for supporting this channel and helping to keep on running so that way we can continue to put out work that is enjoyed in an insane category, a level that I never believed it would be enjoyed at. But still, we are more than happy to do this, and we are so happy to always be making sure to give you all the news that y'all are looking for out there. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Remy Andre Rogsnoy Olsen, who puts in a $20 donation. And huge shout out to Remy for that support. They said, love the work and keep up the awesome reporting, and please take a live chat question.
And thank you so much, Remy Andre Rogsnoy Olsen, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I gotta say, thank you for loving the work. Super chats these days. Now, back in the day, Remy, people used to throw in super chats, and it would almost always be questions. Hey, don't you remember that, Matthew? Like, people rarely ever said extremely kind things in the super chats. It was almost like directly to the question.
Yeah, I remember it. It's really not that way anymore. It's changed to like mainly compliments, which we love to hear, obviously. And then there's also a question attached to it. So I like the change. I think. What do you think?
Yeah,
Of course, you like the change. You like the old way.
I mean, it's one hell of a change. It's really weird to have seen that pass over time because back in the day, people always just wanted the answers. And that was it. That was really all that the super chats were for, was to get out a question and to get an answer. And as time went by, the super chat started to change from really just looking for answers to they then moved on into appreciating the channel a little bit, but still wanting an answer to a question. And nowadays, I feel like almost all of the super chats are just thanking us for the channel, and maybe there's a question, or it's thrown to the live chat. And I gotta say, Remy, it's wonderful to know that such a change like that happened. We went from just being news to people really enjoy this channel so much that really every super chat at this point ends up being a compliment. It really warms our heart, really, when I think about that we've been able to gain so much trust from all of y'all that it's just nothing but kind words these days. But still, thank you massively for the kind words and the support. And we will make sure to take a live chat question, Remy. But I want to thank you greatly for being one of those folks that massively appreciates this channel and finds it worthwhile to help it to keep on running. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got for a live chat?
And this live chat question goes to Kenneth. He says, is it true that Ukrainian Special Forces captured a train carrying a Su-57?
I did not hear that. I would assume that would be untrue, because even if they capture that train, there's no way to get that train into Ukraine at that point. So then they just start riding around with this Su-57 on the back of a train in Russia until they're captured, which wouldn't be that long. So I would have to say I would generally doubt that story was true. But with that, Also, we don't have any video or picture evidence to corroborate that fact, so we would have to assume it's most likely untrue until proven otherwise. But still, I thank you so much once again for asking an interesting question, and I thank you so much once again, Remy Andre, for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Historic Tasmanian, who puts in a $15 donation. And thank you as well, Historic Tasmanian, for being a longtime channel legend and always supporting the work as well. He says, for the Pizzas Fund, and how about it? What? Kangaroo meat pizza with jalapeno cheese. Ect. Your choice is great job, guy. Wait a minute, hold on.
Great job,
great
guys.
choices. Great job, guy. Long live LSA in my heart.
And
I'm trying to get over this kangaroo meat pizza, man. What the hell?
Can you even eat kangaroos? Can you eat?
I don't think it might be illegal.
Kangaroos. Kangaroo. Let's see. Many Australian supermarkets now stock various cuts of kangaroo, including fillets, steaks, minced meat, and conga bongas, also called kangaroo sausages. Many Australian restaurants serve kangaroo meat. Whack! I didn't even know you could eat a kangaroo. Like I knew that they were edible, but I thought that it was illegal to kill them and eat them. You know what I mean? Like, that's wild to know that. So I'm guessing, Historic Tasmanian, since you're one of our Australian viewers, that's an actual topping you can get in Australia is kangaroo. I think I'd be up for trying that, Matthew. I mean, it can't taste that bad. Let's pull that up. What does a kangaroo taste like? What?
Probably tastes like chicken.
Dude, I put what does, and it said kangaroo meat tastes like, and then the bottom one was, well, the second one was, what does gyat mean? I was like, oh,
what
no.
the hell? Man, you know those like suggestions are based on your recent search history, right?
Dude, no, I mean, dude, I didn't put shit in, man. Like, wait, hang on. Let me put that back in. What does... Dude, I'm not kidding. Look at this. Okay, now it's gone. It's gone now. It said,
it's gone now.
Yeah, it said, what does gyat mean? I'm not kidding, dude. Hang on, let me back this up. What does... Look, now it says, what does kangaroo taste like? Crocodile, kangaroo, dog, elephant,
it mysteriously disappeared.
hippo.
You clicked the X on it or something?
No, I didn't click the X, you douche. I didn't click the X. It just literally said, what does gyat mean? I was like, what the hell? I was like, what the hell? Like, why in the world is it there? I don't know what gyat means. Why in the world would I need to pull it up? But anyways, moving on
Just
from
double checking.
The answer to our question is, no, it does not taste like chicken, nor does it taste like steak. Kangaroo is a gamey meat, and some foodies even prefer it to lamb and steak for its tenderness and taste. It tends to be a stronger flavor than beef or lamb. Huh, that's interesting. And even though it's a very lean meat, it's not tough like venison can sometimes be. Interesting. Is kangaroo meat illegal in America? It's illegal in America.
It's illegal here.
That's why I thought it was illegal. Because it is illegal in America to eat a kangaroo. But why? Why is it... Wait, hang on. The import, sale, and purchase of kangaroo meat is regulated by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service under the Endangered Species Act. Therefore, legal sell kangaroo meat U.S. What the hell does that last line mean? Therefore, legal sell kangaroo meat U.S. It's like, what the hell? Okay, but anyways...
Sounds confusing a little bit.
Anyways, it's illegal in America to eat kangaroo, but it's not illegal in America to eat... Well, it's not illegal in Australia to eat kangaroo, meaning we will be moving to Australia to begin to feast upon the kangaroos. So I thank you so much for the support, Historic Tasmanian. I would love to have a kangaroo meat pizza with a jalapeno cheeser and some etceteras. But sadly, we just can't have that in America. We would be put under arrest because we can't eat the baby kangaroos. But I'll tell you something, that baby kangaroo ain't gonna be getting past me once I get to Australia. We're doming that thing. Like it's gonna be dinner. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one. But of course, long live the Lee Spring Army. And what is the next one we got, Matthew?
All right, so our next one goes to Chris. And this is not the Chris that we're talking about, the mother. This is the good Chris. And he puts in a $10 donation and says, I feel a well of pity for all the Ukrainians who suffer during Putin's unjust war. And I also feel bad for the average Russian male who died trying to protect Russia due to Putin's lies. Very sad.
And I thank you so much for the support, Chris. And yes, it is quite sad. I would have to agree, really on all ends. But at the end of the day, kind of like we said back a while ago when talking about the Israel-Palestine situation, we have to take a step back and say, who can we really feel sorry for? And while that Russian soldier, some of them are in a very precarious or bad spot and really aren't supposed to be there, we have to step back and say, who is supposed to be in Ukraine? The Ukrainians are. And while that guy may not want to be there, we have to end up rooting for the Ukrainian side at the end of the day. It still doesn't remove it from being a sad situation, but nevertheless, that's how I end up kind of dealing with it at the end of the day, because we look at a lot of horrendous stuff. Actually, to share with y'all a story, because this is something that I think kind of hit me today, Matthew, because I noticed how desensitized you and me were to something that our mom wasn't. Because for y'all to know, our mom is always asking us a little bit about how the war is going. Doesn't really ask too much because she watches the show sometimes, but sometimes we'll see something extremely graphic, and we have seen I know I have seen every single person in this war that's ever been filmed that has died die. I know I have, because I see every single clip that's ever put out. So I've seen people die in every single way there is, and it sounds really morbid or really crass, but I don't really feel much of anything anymore watching that, because you watch it so many times, you don't really feel any shock anymore. Even when it is something horrendous, you just look at it and go, oh, look at that. You know, that's something new. It's kind of the same way that EMTs or police officers or firefighters look at gore when they arrive on a scene and someone may be deceased. It's just, you know, they're deceased. You know, that is what it is. It's a part of the job. That's what it is. And so Matthew and me kind of have that approach to that. And today there was a video of a Russian that ended up getting wounded, and another Russian that was running behind him just came up to the guy and pretty much put him down like a dog. And we watched the video, Matthew and me did, and we went, oh, that's pretty freaking wild, you know, but that's really all we react like. And then our mom was like, well, what is it? We were like, you don't really want to see it, you know, because, you know, like, we don't have a reaction to it much anymore, but we know that it's pretty bad stuff. So then our mom was like, no, I want to see it. So then we showed it to her because, you know, like, you know, she wants to see it, you know, curiosity killed the cat, why not? So we showed it to her, and then she's like, oh my God. And we were like, yeah, it's war, you know, it's like, that's what it is. But, you know, that's something that's really wild when I think about it, Matthew, is that both of us have kind of gotten into that position where we've seen so many people get killed that when we watch people get killed, you know, even in a graphic form or that we can't even show on air, we're just like, well, there's another one.
Yeah, it used to disturb me a lot more than it does now. Like, I hate to say it, but I think I have become desensitized. If you really stop and think about the video that we watched, which we really can't show on the stream nor really talk about it too much, because it's too graphic, it probably should make you have a reaction, but at this point, I really don't have a reaction to it, which is, I don't think, a good thing, but it's just the way it is, because we've seen so much bad footage at this point, sort of by choice, because we got to cover the news, and sort of unintentionally in some cases. But, you know, I think when you show the videos to other people, like, for example, I knew better than to show it to my mother today, but she was insisting on seeing it, and I was like, you really don't need to see that, nor do you really want to see it. But of course, curiosity gets the best of people, and she ended up seeing it anyway. And then you see the reaction, and you're like, that reaction is a lot more severe than I had to it, and it must be something wrong with me for not reacting the same way. And that's what desensitization will do to people. And you don't realize it until you get too far down the road, and you're like, I've really become desensitized to a lot of this stuff that's really heinous, that is horrible, that way back in the day would have made you go almost physically sick. But that specific video we saw today was insane, because if y'all know the video we're talking about, it was very graphic. Like the enforcer said, a Russian soldier was put down by his comrade that was injured. And he did it so nonchalantly, without any hesitation. That was definitely not the first time the guy did that. He had apparently done it many times before, and he barely stopped to think. But like I said, it does, for some reason, looking at that footage doesn't faze you the same way as it used to after seeing so many bad war videos.
I mean, it really just does not. And I remember what's really bizarre is that I remember this one particularly gory thing, because I guess you always remember the thing that shocks you the most at the beginning of doing something like this. But I remember when the Kramatorsk railway station strike had happened at the railway station in the city, which is right down here, and it was this particular train station right here. Now there is a bench just around here, or at least there was a bench here when the strike occurred. But a missile landed right on this platform, blew up, and it killed about 50 people. And I remember one of the pictures that came out, it was of a kid that was sitting on one of these benches, and he was deceased, but about half of his head was missing, and it was just in the picture. And it was extremely traumatizing at the time to me. I actually thought about that a great deal after I saw it, because it was really revolting and sickening to me. And hell, I'll be quite honest with you all, saying this in hindsight, because this was, crazily enough, this was about 2 years ago. It actually gave me nightmares a little bit about that kid and how traumatic of a sight that was. But now, having, passed that 2 years later, to be quite honest, I've seen things that are a lot worse than that over 2 years of doing this, and it just doesn't really affect me that much anymore. Like, I can look at it and just kind of go, well, that's pretty rough, and then just move on. And it's really weird to really talk about that and think about that, because I remember back at the beginning of the war, when I would look at that kind of stuff, my stomach would sink. I would feel terrible. And now I just kind of scroll through it, because it's really just a part of a business of doing this as this thing as a job and getting to cover this. We just look at it, and so you just stop realizing how grotesque and how bad it really is on a mental level. You still know it when you look at it that it's pretty bad, but you don't really register it anymore on an emotional level. You just kind of look at it and go, okay, and then you move on.
I remember way back earlier on, like maybe a year and a half ago, there were videos that came out that were worse than the one that came out today, much worse actually, of Russians doing horrible war crimes to POWs. And those made me almost physically sick, like how bad they were, like very terrible. And I think a lot of people will remember which ones they were, because you really can't forget those. They're really horrible. And also always remember the war crimes that the Russians commit, because hopefully one day they will be held responsible for it. But it actually made me physically sick. I'm not going back to watch it now because I don't want to see it again. But I wonder if the same type video like that came out today, would we have the same reaction to it that we had a year and a half ago or not? And unfortunately, at this point, after seeing so much, and also another thing that's crazy, I saw Chris in the live chat say that he had been serving in the military for 20 years. And he said the 20 years of service has left him cold as a stone when it comes to being desensitized to stuff. The weird thing now is with the internet and also the phones and cameras being literally all over the battlefield, is you can get almost the same type of reaction. I don't know if it's to go as far as to call it PTSD or not. That might be too far. But you can get almost the same desensitizing and situation or synopsis from simply being on the internet and looking at the videos. You don't actually have to go fight the war now to get traumatized from it. You can simply see the videos, and that's almost enough as being there in person. I'm sure it's much worse in person, but even on the internet, that's crazy. People from way overseas can get traumatized by what's happening inside of Ukraine now because of the internet and how quick information spreads.
And also, I saw someone bring up in the chat. Let me see here. I'm trying to find this again. Let me make sure I can go find it, because it was a really good one. Greg Keating said, is there any difference in actual warfare in a violent video game that shows the same content? Yes, there is a massive difference. When you actually look at the gore side of things, there is a huge difference in between a video game and real life. Now this is something where people go, video games are not like real war. And in some instances, I'd actually say that a lot of video games have gotten so realistic these days, at least for some specific video games, not like Call of Duty or Battlefield, but if you're talking about something like Squad or 6 Days in Fallujah or Arma, that actually can get really close to looking a lot like modern combat, funnily enough, from what we've seen in Ukraine. But with gore, there's just no way a video game can really get the oddness of gore in real life. I don't think they'll ever be able to replicate that, because in a video game, gore is just kind of this like freakish eye candy kind of a thing, is the best way to explain it. And it's kind of designed that way in video games, even when it's meant to be gory and supposed to get that reaction out of you. But real life gore from war, it's a very, very different thing in how it looks. It's also really eerie, especially when you first see it, because there's such a calm stillness around everything. There's no chaos like there would be in like a video game, where you really look at the gore, but you're still like in this like action mindset where you really don't care about it that much or think about it. But with war, even in the middle of firefights, there's such an eerie stillness that just kind of permeates real life, that it adds a new kind of a layer to what you're seeing. And also, it's just different looking. That's really the best way that I can explain it. It's really different looking than what you'll see in a game. Like in a game, they'll always make sure to heavily emphasize the blood side of things, you know, like with gore. And there isn't really that much blood in real life. Even with gory scenes, like they always make it look like pools of blood in a show or a game or something like that. There isn't really that much blood in real gore. Like you know, like we've seen. Well, I don't know if Matthew's seen it. I can't speak for him. But I have seen a couple of times Russians actually get literally cut in half at the spine from explosions, machine gun fire, things like that. And they'll fall to the ground, but there isn't really a lot of blood that's present, if y'all can kind of paint the picture in your own heads. There's not really a lot that's present. And it's a really bizarre thing to see that and then go, oh, that's weird. And of course, some will appear, but it's not much. And it's a really bizarre thing when you see something like that. And it really does get you the first time. You'll like think about that and you'll memorize that. You'll be like, there just isn't really that much blood in real life, and you'll always know that. And so when you look at a video game and then they have like this insanely high amount of blood, it's like gallons of it. You're like, that's not realistic. Like that just isn't how it is. But with that, I hope that does kind of address it.
Also another thing, just speaking of the war footage and the effect it has on people, when you really think about it, like we've sort of like got to the point where we show war footage and we sort of have to detach ourselves from it when we talk about it, because the truth though is like even the videos that we show, which really aren't that graphic, you know, involves death. Like it just is a part of it. You may not see it on the camera, but it involves death in some way or another. And if you watch the war footage enough, you'll be reminded constantly of your mortality. Like nothing's permanent. And it's going to come to an end eventually, like for everybody. It's just not trying to be dark there or anything like that. It's just the way it is. And when you see these videos of the soldiers, you know, meeting the end and stuff like that, you realize how quick it can all come to an end, like in a snap. One pull of a trigger, one finger, literally like ends a person's life that had a childhood and an adolescence. They became young adults, and then it's done and done right there on the battlefield with one finger being pulled on a gun. It's crazy to really think about that. You really, to be honest, you really can't think about it like that when you're covering the war. Otherwise, it will start getting to you. But it's really terrible. It reminds you of the mortality all the time.
Yeah, it does. It really does. But with that, we don't want to get all y'all down. We're gonna make sure it stays all nice and high on good feels. Although it is a war, we want to make sure to keep people's spirits high. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, Chris. And I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to OPO, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, OPO, for that support as well. He said every stream is getting exciting. And also, update on the conflict. I'm debunking everything the pro-Russians say, and this is for the LSA. Also, have y'all ever thought about memberships and member ranks? And love the LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, Oppo. And yes, we have actually thought about that, but I will address that second. First, thank you for saying every stream is getting exciting. It really is getting exciting these days and very interesting with what the Ukrainians are able to achieve. And also, cool to hear that you're debunking what the pro-Russians are saying, because there always has to be a little bit of push to the pool. And also, another thing, we have thought about memberships and member ranks, but the thing is that I don't like how it looks. It looks very tacky in my opinion, and it looks like the channel is very money oriented at that point, which I don't like that kind of a look. And also it makes the live chat look a little bit like a casino, which I'm not a big fan of either. Like, y'all might like casinos. Me personally, I don't want my live chat looking like a casino. Another thing that I really don't like about channel memberships is that it starts to stratify the live chat. Like, everyone isn't just someone. You know what I mean? Oh my god, thank you, LSA Ryan.
Damn!
Dang! Thank you so much. That's incredibly kind of you. But everyone isn't, like, the same in the live chat anymore, which I really like. You know, we're not into communism or anything, but I don't like it when the live chats start to get stratified and you have, like, platinum member talking to base, you know, no membership, no bitches, you know, like that's how I feel like it comes off, you know, and it's really, like, I just don't like it, because then people feel like, oh, you know, like, I can't disagree with so-and-so in a polite conversation because they're a platinum member and maybe they're going to be favorited by the enforcers, and so I'll get banned or something if I disagree with them and it becomes an issue. I don't really like that kind of stuff, and that's why we make sure to keep our live chat as non-monetized as possible, because we have had the option of turning on memberships. In fact, I don't know if you know this, Matthew, but YouTube actually offered us a $2,000 payout if we turned on memberships on our channel. They actually had that as yeah, they had that as an offer here on our dashboard about a week or two ago on our YouTube studio, and we turned it down. I mean, the offer expired. We're not going to be able to get that $2,000 bonus if we ever turned on the memberships, but I would rather go without $2,000 than to stratify our live chat and make our channel seem like it's completely money oriented. Like, instead of it being about covering news and people can support the channel if they want to or not, then it's pretty much being shoved in your face. And also, another thing I don't like about it is that when you click on a live stream to watch it and someone has memberships turned on, YouTube harasses y'all about getting a membership. They're like, hey, do you want to get a membership, or do you want to be a broke, do you want to be a broke bitch? Like, what do you want to be? And then you have to make the option, no, I'd like to be a broke bitch, please. And that just seems like it's rude as hell, you know, like, because that's what YouTube makes y'all want to feel like if you click no. Because I've seen it on other channels, and it makes me feel like that. And I'm like, I shouldn't be feeling like I owe a channel anything if I watch them. You know, like, I shouldn't. Y'all shouldn't. Y'all should be able to get on here and just go, I like the channel and I enjoy it, and not have to worry about YouTube trying to shove a membership in your face, or me trying to shove a membership in y'all's face. And then when y'all finally make it onto the stream, then the live chat is like, you know, it's just tacky, it's hideous looking, and then on top of that, we have like a stratified social structure, literally like a songbun of our own in the chat, where everyone has to deal with a caste system. I personally don't really like that much. And so
I didn't even bring up that $2,000 bonus when I saw it, because I seen that like I think a week ago or something like that. I didn't even bring it up. I was like, nah, like we'd already ruled out the memberships. It's finished, like it's done. And also, I don't really want to see the ranks in the chat either, to be honest, because it's like, why do we need to start, like, you know, stratifying or putting ranks on folks, like you're saying, based on how much money they're putting in? It's not about the money. It's about the people and their opinions. And all opinions are equal in the live chat. It's the beauty of this channel is they're all equal, unlike some other channels. Because I have seen what you're talking about. When certain higher level members start saying something, if someone questions it, obviously the creator is going to be like, oh, I put a higher emphasis on that because that person's a higher rank and they're giving the creator more money. I've seen that especially from Hot Dog Man, his channel. He does it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's disgusting. It's really bad, and it really shows what the priority is. It's money. It's not about people having their opinion.
Also,
but that's just me. This is nasty. It's nasty.
Also, Nova said, you probably make more profit having an ad-free channel. I hate ads. You would think that, but funnily enough, we actually figured it out a while ago. We actually make a lot less than what this channel actually would if we fully monetized it. From what we can tell, based off of the numbers that we've been able to find on other channels, we are making at least 60% less than what this channel would be making if we monetized everything. Like, if we turned on memberships, if we turned on ads on everything, including the stream, if we took sponsors on everything, we would be making about 60%. Well, actually, we'd be making about 200% more than we are making right now. But the thing is that it's not about the money. With running this channel. Of course, we have to make money to survive and do this as a job, but that isn't our priority goal, is to just, you know, make a money mill out of this channel and run it that way. It just seems wrong. It feels wrong, and it doesn't feel good either. Like whenever anything has to be done that could be moving in that direction, like how we have to turn on AdSense on our videos when we put them out in the day, because otherwise YouTube won't push them. We don't really like doing that, but we have to do it because otherwise YouTube is not going to push our video, and we would like to have the video pushed so that way people can actually watch what we're doing, and you know, our work actually has a payoff, which is all of y'all getting to see it. And that's kind of like some of the decisions that we have to make. I'm not really a big fan of that one, but you know, sometimes those shots have to be made as calls. But nevertheless, we would be making more if we had ads and all that, because insanely enough, interestingly enough, at the amount of viewership we get these days, AdSense would actually pay out on this live stream more than we make in Super Chats. But I would rather do it through Super Chats and just cut ads out completely, because we could double dip. It could be Super Chats and ads, or it could just be ads and no Super Chats. But I'd rather do it through Super Chats because it allows y'all to enjoy this channel and support it if y'all like it, and it doesn't over monetize the channel. But that is a little bit of a breakdown of how everything works in the background. But yeah, funnily enough, we actually would make more money if we monetized everything, but we don't want to. It's really tacky. I don't like it, and I would rather us make a lot less money and make sure to run a very quality show that y'all can all be happy with, and of course have an amazing community that everyone can be happy with, instead of maximizing profits over the enjoyment of y'all. Everyone does that now. I mean, every company out there right now no longer goes with, well, we can give up a little bit of profits here and there to make sure that people have a far more enjoyable time dealing with our business or dealing with what we do. No one goes off of that principle anymore. Everyone goes off of, damn it, even if it's just a small creature comfort we have to remove to make an extra 3 cents per sale, we got to do it. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I feel like this is the best way we can run things, is making sure that we monetize enough to be able to do this as a living and a job, but not so much that it ends up being pretty much the only purpose for the channel's existence is to make money. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I thank you so much for the support, Oppo. I was getting really emotional there at the end, not at you, Oppo, just getting emotional at the idea of how the world is sometimes with that, but I want to make sure that we keep running this channel the way we have been and make sure that it is membership free, so that way folks like you can come in, and if you enjoy the channel, you can support it, but you never feel compelled to, like you would with a membership. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to LSA Rocks, who put in another $200 donation. Massive shout out to LSA Rocks for that support once again tonight. And they said, thanks for the news today. And do you think they will retake the annexed areas? Or how far do you think that the push will be able to go? And that bridge needs to go, and high hopes that it does. And barges really aren't enough for the drone boats.
They really aren't, LSA Rocks. I would agree with that completely. And as far as that question goes, that is a very, very good question. And also, thank you so much for enjoying the news from today, LSA Rocks. And thank you for the unbelievable support as well. Tonight has been an insane night as far as support has gone in Super Chats. We very rarely see nights like these. And I gotta thank everyone so much, especially you right now, LSA Rocks, for supporting this channel, because it's been insane. We never see nights like this. It's nuts. But we gotta thank you massively. Also, I think they will retake the annexed areas, but I don't think, because LSA Rocks, if you go to other channels, they'll probably say, oh, Ukraine can win back the lands through decisive victories on the battlefield. I'm actually largely out of that camp at this point. I don't think they can, because throughout the past year and a half, we have seen that every side, the Ukrainians and the Russians, whenever they conduct an offensive battle, they lose. Because Ukraine has lost, from what I can tell, every offensive battle that they have conducted since the middle part of 2023, at least, and the Russians have also lost every single offensive battle that they have conducted since that point. And so going off of that, I would have to say, I don't think a decisive victory could be won on the battlefield to regain the territory anymore, but I think with the war of attrition that's being fought right now, the Russians will collapse by the end of this year and the beginning of next year, meaning that they will be in absolutely no position to defend those lands any longer, and the Ukrainians will probably just march on into them and take them. That's what I honestly think will happen at this point out there on the battlefield. Because I don't see the kind of picture that we used to see at the beginning of the war, like when the Balaklia and the Kherson counteroffensives happened. Those were, of course, just major decisive victories on the battlefield that regained that ground. But since then, we have seen that both sides have been able to really dig in, and it's become a First World War-like situation, where it becomes really an attritional war. And also, the bridge does need to go, but right now, it looks like the Ukrainians have really taken that bridge and knocked it down a couple of notches in importance, because it's not really a strategic target anymore. It was actually the railroad ferries, funnily enough, that are just parallel to the bridge. You can actually see one of the railroad ferries right here. That was the most important for military logistics, but now with those being knocked out, I don't know if the Russians are going to go back to using the bridge full time, and if they do, it will become an important target. But for now, I think the Ukrainians are focusing on other things, although I would like to see the bridge get blown up again. It's a fan favorite. Everyone loves to see the bridge get blown up. And so I would have to say, hopefully it would be soon, but I don't think it's going to be within these next few months. Might be towards the end of this year, to be entirely honest. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, at least in my opinion, LSA Rocks. And thank you so much once again for for those kind words and that incredible support in helping this channel to keep on running. It's unbelievable to see people supporting this channel like this tonight. But we have to say that we are entirely appreciative of y'all, and we thank y'all greatly for making this channel possible. And thank you so much for enjoying our news and supporting it so greatly, so that way we can keep it running. And also, I thank a lot of people for agreeing with me on that assessment, because, let's see, and I'm seeing a lot of people saying they're nowhere out of the woods. I agree with you on that assessment. Let's see. I'm trying to make sure to read the chat. Also, Cobalt Pluto said, did I hear that right? France will aid Lebanon? That is absurd. Well, they're not going to be aiding Lebanon against Israel. They're going to be aiding Lebanon against Hezbollah, and trying to push Hezbollah south of the what the hell is that river called, Matthew? Dang it, I forgot the name of it. I forgot the name.
River Rhine?
No, it's not the River Rhine. No, man, that's that German river, man. Like, it was the wait a minute, it was the other one up in Beirut. Sorry, everyone. This one actually has the name of the river. I want to make sure to get it right. To push the Hezbollah forces south of the Litani River, which is where they're supposed to be, according to a UN resolution. So they're not going to be supporting Lebanon in the war against Israel. They're just going to be supporting Lebanon against Hezbollah, so that way hopefully a war in between Lebanon and Israel does not happen. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Hope that clears that up a bit, because it looks like there may have been a little bit of a misunderstanding or confusion there. But with that, thank you so much once again, LSA Rocks, for that unbelievable support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Cheerful Tunic Gaming, who puts in a 10 and says, greetings from Toronto, Ontario. And have you ever considered traveling up here? And make sure to check out Algonquin Park. It's some of the best camping in the world. And go up there this summer. And good work, guys. And I'll tell you what, Cheerful Tunic, we know several people from Toronto. I've heard mixed things about it. I don't know if it's good or bad. It looks like you think it's very good, so that seems to go contrary to what I've heard in the past. But I might have to go see this place for myself one day, because I've heard so much about it. And also, let's see that park, Enforcer. Can we see this Algonquin Park?
The Algonquin Park. Where is the Algonquin Park? Let's see. So let's go type that in. Algonquin Park in Ontario, Canada. So here it is. Let's see where that is in Ontario. Oh, wow, that's way out there. Ooh, wowzers. But let's see what we got. Oh, that's really pretty. That looks like upstate New York. I've never been there, but it looks like it to me. But it's really pretty, actually. I like this place. Look at that.
Man, that's pretty nice.
Man,
I heard that if you walk through the forest here, they say, just automatically, without any provocation, sorry.
Sorry, bro, or sorry, bloating fam. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, man. Like, but anyways, oh man, but still, I gotta thank you so much for the support in recommending coming up to Toronto and Ontario. What's actually funny about that? What is the irony about that? Cheerful Tunic Gaming is that we actually have friends that are from Toronto who live here in Alabama now. And they were specifically from Mississauga, which is an incredibly big city. It's pretty much a part of Toronto. Well, you know that. I mean, you're from the area. I'm explaining that for everyone else, though, so that way you don't think I'm insulting your intelligence, because you know you're from there. But anyways, beyond that, they're from here, and they actually, interestingly enough, have terrible things to say about Toronto in general. Like, it's interesting how much bad things they have to say. They say, funnily enough, they love Alabama a lot, like way more than Toronto. I think I don't know. I don't really don't know how to explain it. But they love Alabama. I'm happy that they do, because we're really great friends with them. But beyond that, yeah, it's an interesting thing. But we do want to go up here one day and see Toronto, because they've said so much about it. I'm like, I gotta go see if this is true or not. I mean, like, you know, this could be a nice place. Like, let's drop down, Matthew, in downtown Toronto, and let's see what it looks like.
Oh, look at this. It's a street.
It looks pretty nice. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not gonna lie. It looks pretty clean. But, you know, looks can be deceiving.
Looks can be deceiving. Staples. But you never know. I mean, you never really know. I mean, they got this older building here. I mean, it could be not that bad. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, man. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least from what we know. But I will come up there one day and try and check it out. Problem is, though, is that we work 7 days a week. That is the one problem that we have with wanting to really travel or do anything, is that we never get any off time. Particularly because we have a hard-ass boss, and that's both of us. We were both hard-asses on ourselves, so we always never really take time off. Actually, funnily enough,
We stay grinding all the time.
we on that grind. But Matthew, funnily enough, was actually wanting to get off the grind for a little bit, and he was like, man, for my birthday, could we, like, all go on a vacation somewhere? I was like, what you say? I was like, we gotta keep working.
Whoa, Jack! I wasn't. Well, here's the catch, though. I wasn't trying to get off the grind. In fact, I'm taking the grind with me because my setup is mobile. Like everything, I could run the stream on my end completely mobile, no matter where I am, as long as I have a good internet connection. Because I have all the mobile stuff: the laptop, good mic to take mobile, and all my wireless keyboard and mouse and all the other stuff that I need. Also a monitor as well. So I can do it mobile. But the Enforcer has never gotten a mobile setup. And that's why we have not been able to go on vacation, is because he does not have a mobile setup. And also, he says that if he's not at the desk, the streaming desk that we have, then he's not going to be able to get in the right frame of mind to do it mobile. But like Miss Disa said, I actually did it mobile in Texas, and also I did it mobile in Mobile, that is, before as well. So I've done it mobile several times, from a hotel, and from one other time from a house. It's pretty good to do it mobile. I think it's pretty good.
If I was remembering right, might be wrong on this, but my memory don't fail me on this one. I think the internet on your end crapped out both in Mobile and in Texas, which is one of my big concerns, is that your internet, you can travel, because if your internet craps out, I can still run the show solo. But if my internet craps out and I'm somewhere where there is no internet, the show's over. There is no show. Here's the solution though.
We don't need to stay in a hotel. An Airbnb could solve the problem, is they tell you ahead of time what kind of wireless connection they got in their houses, and also it's actually cheaper than a hotel, so it's actually better. We might have to try that next time, because man, it's been a long time since we've taken a vacation. We've been grinding around the clock. Like I've been only getting like a few hours sleep out of some of these nights. I'm telling you.
It has been, to give this context, it's been 3.5 years since I have taken a vacation. It's been, I think, a couple of months since Matthew technically took a vacation to Texas, although I don't know if that counts. Yeah, because it was more of like a drive there, drive back kind of a thing. But beyond that, I have not had a vacation in 3.5 years. To be quite honest, I'm fine with not having one for another 3.5 years, because I'm busy, I'm working, you gotta work. It's a part of life. I love doing this, by the way, this is my vacation, is working. I love work. But beyond that, the big thing to me, the big concern to me, and this is why I will probably not be able to join Matthew if they go on a vacation, because his birthday is coming up very soon, and he wants to go on a vacation for his birthday, is I will probably not be able to join him and go with him, with the rest of the family, wherever, because I want to make sure that the show can keep running. And if the Matthew says, oh, the Airbnb is advertised as this, but the hotels he also stayed in were advertised as having great internet, and that's why they picked out specific hotels, and then the internet would crap out on him, and then we would be in absolute hell the whole show because his connectivity was bad because of the bad Wi-Fi, or he would just get booted off air, and then I had to run it on my own. And I don't want to be
that hotel in Dallas was a total random thing. That was a random hotel we just stopped at. Like, we didn't know what they had. Like, they could have had, like, crap internet, and it turns out that they kind of did, so I had to connect to my mobile hotspot instead, which worked. But it didn't in Mobile, so I had to connect to the hotel Wi-Fi. But both places I actually were able to connect. It was just sometimes sketchy at times. And also, I'm always like a little sketched out about that. I try to use a VPN on a hotel internet, because I'm always worried about somebody like hacking and getting info or something like that.
And also, another thing that I haven't really touched on a lot, it's not just the internet connectivity thing. I'm a very peculiar person when it comes to running this stream. And I have a very specific setup for running it. I have my mouse plugged into my computer. It is a specific kind of mouse. It is a CyberPower PC mouse that moves at a certain rate across the screen, like this right here. And I have that measured out perfectly with my hand, where I can move straight up here to a tab and click on it exactly and do all that. The keyboard is the right kind that works the right way for me. I'm very happy with it. The computer, I know it's all plugged in. Everything I need is right there. The monitors are set up where I know what I'm looking at. I can look at the one in front of me and the one to the left of me. Everything is set up right. The chair is the right chair, all of that. This may sound a little bit like I have Asperger's syndrome or something like that, maybe, but if that setup is not exact the right way, it will send me almost into a mental breakdown, because I have a very I actually focus a lot on air to be able to say what I say. Like, it actually takes a lot of concentration to be able to monologue pretty much for 3 straight hours. And so I have to make sure that everything else that I'm doing is muscle memory. It can't be something that I'm having to actively think about, like which screen am I supposed to be looking at right now to get what kind of info, or what am I doing right now, or why is my chair too high or too low. Everything's got to be just right, because I cannot think about it. If I think about it, it's going to start driving me crazy, because it's going to be taking my concentration off of talking on air. And so if any of that setup was to change, and it would if it ended up being a mobile setup, because none of it would be the right way, I would probably just end up going into an actual freak out on air, because I would be so stressed out trying to remember everything I need to be doing extra, and then also running the show. So that's why I really can't travel. That's really the big thing, is that mentally I would not be able to handle having the setup changed in some way and having it completely different. Like if we moved even from the basement of this house to somewhere else, this setup would have to be set up the identical way that it is right now, because I just cannot have it different. This is the way it's been for 850 days now, and if it changes, I'm going to be just completely out of my zone, like completely out of it. And so I hope that does address that fairly well. Certain devs said, like, batting in baseball. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like that. I would agree with that. It's kind of like I have to have like my specific bat. I have to have like my specific running shoes, all that stuff to be able to do this right. That's really my mindset. And if it's not like that, I just can't do it. I'm not really a flexible-minded person with that. And that's why when they're like, oh, come on, make it mobile, I'm like, no, it would cost thousands of dollars to make this thing mobile. And then not only that, I would probably have a mental breakdown and not even be able to run the show, because I'd be so focused on trying to figure out what the hell I'm even doing with my hands and how to click on things and do things. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. Nova said I got the tism. Thanks, geez, thank you. Like, I got that tism. But anyways, gee, thank you, Nova. But if you want to call it that, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. In this case, I guess I do have a tism. But you know, that's how I view it. I have to have this set up the right way. That's really the big thing about why I cannot travel. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for the support, Cheerful Tunic Gaming. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Rob S. And Rob puts in a $10 donation, and huge shout out to him for that support. He said, and also, by the way, that was his first ever super chat, Rob S. And huge shout out to you for the first time ever. He said, longtime viewer and LSA.
And I would have to say, thank you for being a longtime viewer, Rob S. I know you are, because you've been here forever. And I got to thank you so much for throwing in your first super chat ever and being a part of helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who help to make this thing possible, and we are greatly appreciative. And with that, we are on to the next one. And also, man, I'm seeing some of the funniest comments. Man, someone said, let me see, who was it? Silent Lamb, I think it was. They said that boy got that tism cut. It's like, for honestly, man, probably. I mean, like, you know, and let's see. O2 said it will throw you out of your routine. Yes, it would. Fiuma said sounds like a form of autism. No joke. Listen, I'm not going to disagree with y'all. It may be, but I got to work with it. Like I can't just go, okay. Like if I'm autistic in this specific instance, I'm just going to stop being autistic. Let's travel. No, I would freak out. Like when I say freak out, it's not like I would have like a breakdown and start crying and like, you know, curl up into a ball or anything, but it would stress me out so much that I'd just be like, damn it, we're going off air. I'll see y'all around. And then I just get off air like that or something, because yeah, like honestly on the podcast, it was really hard doing the podcast thing. Because, you know, like the whole thing where we were live on air and you can see us on camera, it was so hard doing that because I was completely out of my league with how everything was operating at that time. So, you know, even that was really difficult. But anyways, whether I
also, let me dispel something real quick. I see something here in the live chat. Cram Bilal said, going back about 500 days ago, didn't you mention having a belly issue and stream from the loop?
Let's see. Okay, there we go. We're finally back. Good Lord, that was a long one. Yeah, we're finally back. That was a long one, though. My Lord. But get back to the whole thing about the loop. Like, go and address that again.
Man, I ain't never said nothing about having a belly problem and going and streaming from the loo. Like, that's never happened. Ever happened. I'll tell you what. I don't know where they came up with that from, but that ain't true, buddy. That ain't true. I don't know where they came up with that. Are they talking about you, Enforcer?
Hell, I could never run a show from the loo, because how the hell would I fit an entire desk set up in a bathroom? Like, that would make no sense. I guess it'd have to be you, because you're the only one who's...
No, it's not me.
That ain't me. I don't even know where the hell anyone would get that from. And then TLR said, man, everyone thinks they're autistic in 2024. Yeah, that's something that I honestly have to agree with. That's why when people are like, you have the autism, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I do. I like to think I'm a little peculiar like that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm, you know, I don't like labeling. You know, like, people are like, oh, I have PTSD. It's like, yeah, I have nightmares about things I see in the war from time to time. But that's just having nightmares. I mean, it's something bad to see. Does it mean I have PTSD? Probably not. No. Or, you know, just because I'm a little particular about my desk setup, does that mean I have the autism? No, it probably doesn't. I mean, you know, if people want to say that, they can say that. It doesn't matter to me, because I still run a pretty good show, and that's all that matters, at least in my mind. But, you know, I just like to think I'm a little peculiar about my desk setup and got to have it a specific way. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat from Penguin Man 320, and thank you very much, Penguin Man, for that support. He said, "Slava Ukraine."
And Slava Ukraine. And thank you so much, Penguin Man 320, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep this channel running. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Shoigu's Ghost. And at this point, if you see Shoigu, he probably is a ghost, because I haven't seen him. But he puts in a $5 donation, and he's becoming very close to becoming Prigozhin at this point, Shoigu is. But he said, LSA, hit the like, subscribe, donate. And I love y'all. And take one from the chat.
Hey, and thank you, Shoigu's Ghost. Laying brick split. But still, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, folks. It really does make us happy. And we will take a hit from the live chat. Wait, did that say take a hit?
Take a hit. No, take one from the live chat.
Sorry, I was mixing up Carrie Ann's and Shoigu's Ghost. I saw a hit in Carrie Ann's, and I thought I said, take a hit from the live chat. I was like, well, we're not really those kind of people, but I guess we will in this instance. But with that, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so the question here from Shoigu's Ghost is going to go to Random Stoner. And if I didn't know any better, I think that was Hot Dog Man. But this is Random Stoner. He's a good guy. He says, how many oil refineries have been attacked versus not?
Oh, man, that is a really hard one. I don't think we actually have a number on that. But I do know that I believe, like, 15 to 17 oil refineries have been targeted and hit, sometimes multiple times at different periods of the war. So I would say 15 to 17, probably out of the 60 to 70 that exist within Western Russia, at least from my knowledge. But those are some very rough numbers, and I would highly encourage you to do a little bit of research of your own on that category, because I might be wrong, but that would probably be a pretty good starting number to work with. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, thank you once again, Shoigu's Ghost, for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a 5 from Carrie Ann LSA, the first couple of the LSA. And huge shout out to Nick as well. And she said, hey guys, and what's the current number on oil refineries that have been hit? And LSA for life.
Oh no, it's the same question. But still, thank you, Carrie Ann LSA, for being a part of the first LSA couple. And thank you for being an absolute legend of the channel. To answer that question, I believe it's somewhere in between 15 to 17 oil refineries have been hit so far, sometimes multiple times throughout the war. So you'll see another report that an oil refinery has been hit, but sometimes it's the same one getting hit twice, just a couple of months apart. So from what I know, 15 to 17 of them have been hit and are in various states of damage. But still, thank you so much once again, Carrie Ann LSA, for the support. And LSA for life, baby! And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And this one goes to Caviar, who puts in a 5. It says, does it look like Zelensky's big 2023 defensive building in the east is the reason Vovchansk was not a Ukraine failure now? And I remember many doubting them.
Well, Caviar, I would say yes, but actually no. Vovchansk really survived just because of a really robust Ukrainian defense. Not really for the amazing defensive structures that were built, because the Ukrainian commanders in the area openly derided the defenses that had been made and said that they were terrible or either poorly planned or completely non-existent. within this region of the country, meaning that those mass defense construction plans never really reached this area. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Caviar, good question. And I got to thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to LSA Master Sergeant Figment, who puts in a $5 donation. And huge shout out to Master Sergeant for that support.
Hey!
He said, this one is for the boys of the 35th. Initiate, lead, make an example, and win. I'm Israel Chai.
And I'm Israel Chai, and I got to thank you so much once again for the support, LSA Master Sergeant Figment, for helping this channel to keep on running and making this channel possible. And I got to say, huge shout out to the 35th. You even gave me one of their patches, and I got to say, it is actually a pretty cool patch. That snake looks like the one I ran over on our street like 2 days ago. Actually, this one looks greener. The one I ran over on the street was a black racer, and the reason why I ran it over is because black racers are aggressive. I mean, really aggressive. And so I didn't want that thing. But still, thank you so much once again for support. And thank you for giving a huge shout out to the 35th. Amazing airborne group in Israel. And thank you so much for being one of our IDF veterans, LSA Master Sergeant Figment. And so with that, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one is going to go to John Garner, who put in a 5. He said, unbelievable.
And it is unbelievable, John Garner. It's unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. But still, I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Troll Grinding Cheek Smacker, who puts in a 5. And a huge shout out to you, Cheek Clapper,
Cheek Smacker.
for that support. Huge shout out. They said Russia is best at antiquate. Wait, damn, I'm all messed up. Hold on. Russia is best at antiquate. Damn, man.
Antiquated.
Russia is best at antiquate. Man, I cannot say a word for the life of me. I really can't say that.
I'll read it.
Go ahead.
Russia is best at antiquated. Oh my God, I'm doing it.
You messed
Wait,
up.
hang on. Russia is best at antiquated military doctrine, brain drain, Dutch disease, institutional corruption, alcoholism, fastest shrinking navy. Ukraine ho.
Facts.
And straight facts while we're looking into antiquated. We're looking at that medicated, antiquated.
That was a tongue twister right there. I thought the cheek smacker thing had got me messed up. I think it's just a tongue twister.
Man, I'll tell you what, man. Shit. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much for the support. Troll Grinding Cheek Clapper, in helping this channel to keep on running. And I'd have to say that they are the best at those things. I'd agree. Amen. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Shady Haze Gaming, who puts in a 5 and says, shout out to Griffin for giving the support that many of us are unable to.
And a huge shout out to Griffin Provenzano tonight. That was unbelievable support. Absolutely incredible. We cannot ever ask any viewer to support the channel, much less to that degree. That was absolutely amazing, and we have to give him a huge shout out for that, because if it was not for folks like Griffin Provenzano and everyone else who supported this channel massively tonight, a big shout out to Alex Scott and LSA Rocks as well, for being the top 3 super chatters of the night. We wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. Support like that is insanely beneficial for this channel, helps us out greatly, and we can't thank them enough for that. And so thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping to keep on running, and giving a shout out to Griffin Provenzano with your super chat, Shady Haze Gaming. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Terrence Custer, who puts in a 5 as well. He says, if the Korean War starts right back up, do you think it will be a UN war once again, since there was never a peace treaty actually signed?
It may be, actually. It's possible it could be. Because, once again, you know, I mean, you know, it could be. I mean, I'm not going to rule that out. But I would have to say, Terrence, I don't know. I know that the United States will be there. I don't know about the rest of the UN, though, because it doesn't really seem like a lot of European countries that were involved originally are really saying a lot about what's going on over there right now. It's really just the United States. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, Terrence, and I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Anaru Ball for putting in a $5 donation, and this time, no comment attached to it. But thank you very much, Anaru, for that support as always. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta give you a huge thank you, Anaru Ball, for the support. You didn't throw in a comment, but the support means a lot. It helps us to keep this thing running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have one from Rusiana C, who puts in a 5. It says, greetings from Malaysia again. And this is on behalf of my Ukrainian friend's uncle who lost his life 3 days ago due to Russia. And goodness, my condolences, by the way, to that. And Enforcer, what say you?
That's terribly unfortunate, and we do send our condolences. But still, hello to Malaysia. I hope you're doing well down there. But I hate to hear that your friend's uncle lost his life 3 days ago due to the war. That's incredibly unfortunate, and I hate to hear that. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that one day the Ukrainians are able to completely triumph over the Russians on the battlefield and hopefully avenge the deaths of so many innocent civilians who just got caught in the way of the Russian army and their unbelievable war in Ukraine. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one here goes to Philip Fix's LSA, who puts in a 5. And huge shout out to you for that support. While I grab a bot right here, he's got to go. There he goes. He's gone now.
But
Philip Fix's...
Oh,
that was another one.
Sorry,
I got him a minute ago.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was that one, dude. I saw that one. I was like, sure. I was like, go tell that to Hot Dog, man. Oh, man, it's an ever-growing channel. They're too strong. They're going to crush me. There's some crap like that. But anyways, we're on to that next one, man. Please, by all means, read.
So Philip said, Enforcer, it might seem like it's fine, but when you get older, you'll realize what you missed out on. Go take the damn vacation. We all want you to go. Go.
You all want me to go, You all want me to go on a little vacation? Enjoy a little free time? No, I can't. We would have to cancel the show the whole time we're on vacation. I couldn't do it. And that's I'm uncompromising on that. I'm uncompromising on it, damn it. I can't stop running the show. I promise y'all I would run this thing 6 days every single day. We then lowered that down to 6 days a week, so we're already kind of breaking the promise there, and I don't want to break it any further because also when I got the Wu-Tang Whirlybird virus a little while ago, we ended up not running a show pretty much for a week. Then I don't want to not run this show for a week. The show must go on at all costs, and that's been the mindset that I've had for 850 days, and everyone said, you will burn out very soon, and 850 days later, I'm still here, and they're not. I'm just kidding. They're all still here, but, you know, they learned that I'll just keep going. I'm a machine, damn it! I'm a machine! But still, with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Philip Fixes, LSA, and I do thank you so much for the kind words of wanting me to go on a vacation. But I am simply too stupid to go, and so I'll have to refuse. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to that next one.
And our next one goes to USS Liberty, Never Forget, who puts in a 4 and says, thanks, guys.
And thank you for your support in helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Francis Morton and also Richard Nelson for each putting in a $2 donation and without comments. But thank you very much, Francis and Richard as well, very much for that support. And we also have a 2 from LSA Master Sergeant Figment once again. And he says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
And that is an order. Y'all hit that like button. We've gotten up to 3,300 likes tonight. And I know we can eke out just a little bit more. And so please, hit that like button. It would make us so happy. It helps us so much, and so please do. But still, thank you so much once again, LSA Master Sergeant Figment, for throwing in that statement and helping us to plug that like button. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we now have a $10 super chat from Ben 8. And he says, what individual battle victory would be the nail to Russia?
I have a feeling that an individual battle victory near Melitopol, splitting the land bridge in two, would be the death knell for Russian ambitions in Ukraine. I have a feeling that without a shadow of a doubt, would defeat the Russians in the war very quickly. But that probably would be unlikely to happen. But still, I thank you so much for the support, Ben, and I hope that does address that well. If they were to win a decisive victory on the battlefield, that probably would be the one that would be the death knell to the Russian war effort in Ukraine. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
In our next ones here, go to, first off, Wyatt Logan, who put in a 2, and said, have a wonderful night, Enforcers, in LSA. And thank you, Wyatt.
Thank you. And I hope you have a great one too, Wyatt Logan. And thank you so much for the support. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, huge shout out to Cool Teen 2020, who put in a $2 donation, and also Massimiliano Marcioni, who also put in a 2 as well. And a huge shout out to the both of you for that support, and also especially to Cool Teen, who put in their first ever super chat on a live stream. Huge shout out to that. And we also have a 5 from Haviland Tuff, and he says, do you think you will take time off after Ukraine wins?
Yes, we will take time off after the war in Ukraine is over, because by that point, I just want to breathe. It has been 850 days, and I'll keep going in as long as we need to. But I would like to take a break. I really would. It's just that there's still so much to do. There's still so much going on. We can't take a break. We just can't. I know everyone else in the world takes breaks. I know that everyone goes to the golf course, or they go have fun, or they go have vacations. Vacations. Everyone, even the presidents of the United States, they usually spend more time at the golf course than in the Oval Office. That's not just something particular to one president, that's really all of them. But nevertheless, I'm just not that kind of person, damn it. There's so much to do, and so little time to do it. And I want to make sure that we can do it all. But still, with that, thank you so much once again for support, Haviland Tuft. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Christian Ebers, who puts in a 2 and says, woo woo, let's go.
Woo woo! And let's go, baby! And I gotta thank you so much once again for the support, Christian Ebers. And let's go. And we shall go to the live chats. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And Matthew, we're now moving on into those live chats, but due to time constraints tonight, we will unfortunately only be able to get a smaller number. But we will be making sure to get as many of them as we can. Fake news, total BS! Listen, people, open your eyes! Open your eyes! They're feeding you lies!
It's all fake. All the news is fake. Don't believe your eyes. I know you see videos, you see evidence. Don't believe your eyes.
If it doesn't agree with me, it's not true. It's just simply not true. But what the hell are you talking about, Magnetary? Get out of here! But Matthew, what does our Morse code decoders of the night have to say?
So tonight we had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J. and Rumpelstiltskin, and also David Millsaps. They said the Morse for tonight says, it won't be much longer before all Russian soldiers evacuate from Kharkiv, and long live the LSA.
And that is the sound of money, and y'all got that down on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I got to congratulate y'all for getting that right. That is absolutely incredible, absolutely amazing to see that y'all got that dead on the nail. And I gotta say, it is true as well. I didn't put that message down for nothing. It's true. And so with that, we are on to the 5th to last question of the night.
You know, have you ever heard the phrase, don't believe your lying eyes?
I have.
You know, that's what those bots want to have you think. Don't believe your lying eyes. But my question to the bots is this. Where are their evidence of what they're saying? How come nobody out there has any evidence for what they're saying? Because we have all the bots come here constantly. Most of the time, they're Russian bot farm bots, meaning they're most likely computers and fake people that are being put out by the Russians. But sometimes we have some real ones come in occasionally. And you can tell which ones are real most of the time. You can tell it because some of them are a little bit more nuanced in their responses. But my thing is to the pro-Russians, where's your evidence that any of the stuff that you're saying is happening? We show it here for our side, but where is your side's evidence? Because it seems like it's a lot of hot air, a lot of empty statements to me.
I would have to agree. I would have to agree. Quite so. Quite indeed. And so with that, we are on to the 5th to last question of the night.
All right. So this one here, let's see here. This one's going to go to the Plant Lord, who says, if Israel invades, what will Iran's reaction be?
Probably to funnel more weapons to Hezbollah, but there won't really be a lot more that they could do unless they wanted to try and conduct another large drone and missile strike on Israel, which would end up not succeeding again. They could try that, but beyond that, there's not really a lot of options rather than those two. And so with that, we are on to the fourth to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Mike Petrek, who says, will Lebanon military get involved if Israel attacks Hezbollah?
Probably, maybe so, maybe not. I'm not exactly certain on that, considering that Hezbollah is not an official extension of the Lebanese government. They might not get involved in any way, or they might get involved against Hezbollah trying to push them towards the Israelis. I'm not entirely sure, but I would have to be honest with you. I'm going to have to declare ignorance on that at the moment and try and do a little bit of more research and information gathering to get you a better, clearer answer. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to, let's see here, it goes to David Long, who says, has the Russian withdrawal affected the casualty reports much? And if so, did it rise, lower, or stay the same?
Currently, the Russian withdrawal started today, so we don't really have enough casualty statistics at the moment to know whether it's rising or decreasing. So unfortunately, due to a lack of data, due to how recent this development is, we can't really say whether it's risen or dropped at this moment. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Nickelodeon Surname, who says, would it be fair to say that the West's policy has shifted finally from Ukraine winning to Russia collapsing, and they are now working on that?
Yes, because we can see that they're trying to provide air defense to Ukraine, which is about trying to reduce damage to Ukrainian interior infrastructure and interior defense industry, so that way they can survive and outlast the Russians. So I would say yes, it's more so moved on from the strategic victory for Ukraine to a collapse of the Russian Federation is more so the aim at this moment. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Mace LSA. He says, what would be the ultimate goal of the invasion of Lebanon? Strictly to exterminate Hezbollah or to overthrow the entire weak government?
It would really just be to overthrow Hezbollah. It doesn't sound as though the Israelis have any ambition of overthrowing or replacing the current Lebanese government. It is just an attempt to try and remove Hezbollah from the area of southern Lebanon, or greatly weaken them to the point they would not pose a serious issue to Israel for the next several years. That really seems to be their current war goals that they're stating before they actually begin the war. Great question, Mace, and I hope I was able to answer that incredibly well. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching. At the peak, 8.6 thousand people are here, and over the length of this stream, 72,000 people have watched. And I've got to say that it is absolutely incredible to have so many of y'all here with us tonight and enjoying this news and really hopefully getting a lot of information out of it. If y'all did enjoy, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We run this channel every single day of the week, 6 days a week, except for Monday. Monday's the only day that we do not run. But every other day, you can count on us to be here covering this news, covering the information about what's going on, not just in Ukraine, but around the world. And of course, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine and to also run our Sunday night fundraiser. And so with that, good night, good luck, stay safe, take care, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
All right, and once again, folks, thank you all for another great stream tonight, and we'll see you all tomorrow midday for the short war summary and also for the nightly war news stream again tomorrow night. But with that, thank you all, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava, and get some rest and good night.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.